Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan Musnett. With me, the John Cena sucks.
Yep.
Travis Snell, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good. Happy. People will be listening to this after the fact, but if anybody listens to it right on Patreon release, happy St. Patrick's Day to people.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
Did you not know it was St. Patrick's Day?
I did. I
Yeah.
did.
But you did not warn us, shout out. Is that you think?
I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that
It's
like
a
what are you
bottom
doing?
holiday
What are
for
you
me.
doing to celebrate? Are you doing anything to celebrate? Like, is
It's
your
a-
day different because it's St. Patrick's Day right now?
It
Other
is
than
a
the
little-
green that you have in your background lights?
Yeah, got that. It is with the kids, hid some chocolate around, not Easter Bunny style, but like
Oh.
a little, like
you
that.
hide chocolate on St. Patty's Day?
Not exactly, but like they made at school, they made these leprechaun traps. So you still got to make it seem like the leprechaun came to visit, right? So we did something. Emily created a rainbow with Skittles.
That was not a thing when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, they were eating Skittles in the morning. These kids, because they found there was a rainbow, and we made a rainbow. So yeah, but no.
When you
I,
wait, sorry, no, I gotta ask
Yeah.
more. When you were a kid, did your
I don't think
parents make
so.
you believe that leprechauns were a real thing and you had to catch them?
I think that might have been true. I don't think I got the treats as much, but I feel like leprechauns were played up like a little bit, not as much as some of the other guys, but I feel like
Okay.
leprechauns were spoken about. But
Huh.
yeah, it was
Interesting.
a holiday that I never, obviously, just as a kid, but I didn't celebrate because I'm somebody that doesn't drink. So that was the ultimate holiday that I never went out. Other times when I was single, or even when Emily and I first started dating, loved going to like the clubs on Halloween, New Year's Eve, all that stuff. But St. Patty's Day, no, that was not my holiday because I can definitely deal with drunk people. St. Patrick's Day, just everybody is drunk, and you're the one person that's not drunk, so it does not become a fun time.
Mhm.
So, and even like remember like O'Flanagan's here in Kelowna, that's
Mhm,
not
mhm.
my vibe. I don't like really loud places
Yeah.
I like listening to bands, but that's just obnoxiously loud where I can't even hear people. So definitely problem the bottom tier for me. But I got to shout out, for Irish listeners out there,
Okay.
Shout.
Yes,
I don't know
good
where that
shout out.
is. I got to find out on our statistics where Irish listeners are at. So.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I'm excited for this episode. We kind of have some a random smattering of topics. We're going to talk about the
Mhm.
Switch 2 a little bit. There's a nice article here from Polygon that kind of breaks down what we maybe could or couldn't expect from the Switch 2 lineup. So that's interesting. There's some tiny little murmurs of some more Star Wars video game stuff. So we're going to talk about that. And then you've been playing the latest, greatest game on the market, WWE 2K25. So we're going to talk about
Yeah.
that as well. And yeah, so I think other than that, shoutouts wise, I feel like right now we have like a nice, clean, reliable schedule. Like first, we got like Sidequest dropping Tuesday, Daredevil dropping Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday getting a weekly geek, and then
Mhm.
things on top of that, of course. But that's kind of like the main trio happening on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
along with
And
all
then
the other million things we do.
And then for people, whether you're on the phase 2 or phase 3 tier or your producer tier that gets everything, I usually try and draw up whatever Patreon thing on the day we don't have anything, because there's always like Daredevil, we have a break, and then that. So we do got a good consistent. I tried to, with Weekly Geek, I think that was a good thing to bring back for us, because one, it's like consistent, but two, it's like we don't get burned out, because like Daredevil's our bread and butter, where all four of us are on
Yeah.
every week. But then it's like always a nice kind of schedule going on. People get to hear, and then that's why when all four of us on episode, makes it even more special, like bread and butter coming up
Mhm.
this week. So
Well, you mentioned the magic word there, Patreon. So yeah, go
Yeah.
check out Patreon episodes early and ad free. That's the best place to go. Best place to go to support us, to listen to the show. It's really just the best place in the geekverse, I guess. I'll put
Yeah.
it that way. But yeah, I think other than that, we can kind of just get right into it. So over the weekend, you and the Gimmick Boys
Yes.
did a stream for WWE 2K25 because the GM mode now has an online variant to it. Now, I've watched a couple hours of this stream, and
It was a long stream.
seems like there was maybe some technical difficulties, not on your end, but on the
Yeah.
game's end. So I don't know if you want to talk about the game first, talk about the stream, because I kind of want to hear a recap of the stream and how that went, but
Yeah,
also
we can
just
do
the
the
game in general. So whatever you want to
We
do.
can do the stream first, and because I can talk a little bit more about GMO, because I did play with some of the other features. The only thing I haven't done is the island yet. None of the Gimmick Boys said as well either, because I don't think the island pretty much, because I can recap this because we haven't played it. It's you create a character, you go in an online lobby, and you verse people, you have matches, and it's kind of just you upgrade your character, and it's a lot of cosmetic stuff. So they like have like Nike partnerships, like a lot of third brands that are big brands. Like I think you can get like Air Jordans in the game, but like that's not stuff that really appeals to me. I don't think that's even any of us here at Geek First. You know, like the most cosmetic thing I do is Call of Duty. That's the only game I've ever bought like
Yeah.
cosmetic stuff, and that's usually because like I want to be a full Ninja Turtle, I want to be Terminator. You know, where this is like like I don't care about Air Jordans. I don't need that and stuff. So you can either buy them or unlock them. There's other stuff too, but there's nothing really that's been pulling me. I might get to it eventually, so that's the one mode we didn't try, but everything else I have tried, so I talked about. But yeah, so the stream went pretty well. I said this on the stream, we're going on our 9th extra life and many other streams. I've never been the streamer guy. I've been my role is always the schedule and the promotion. That's always
You're the promo
Travis's
guy
role.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm tweeting it out. I always got the laptop. I'm tweeting this out, getting the links up for charity, stuff like that. So I feel like the first 10 years it was you, and then for the first 5 years it was you.
Oh my god, how many years?
It will be. Yeah, first 5 years with you, and then the next 5 years it was Taylor. But so Taylor, with some armed security because I still can't trust him, don't know who attacked me, came over, helped me set up, and luckily not a single issue, because we went through some issues the night before, but I thought you know how this is on the stream, right? Like something always funny happens. You're on the right port, you forget to turn off the HDMI thing on the PlayStation.
Oh my god, yeah, that one got us good this year.
Yeah, and even that's where I will say, if people look at that video and think it's daunting, I am going to make an edited version in the future too, because like the first half an hour is just like random wrestlers wrestling. I did that because like I want to make sure the stream's running all fine, like good. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a lot of the fluff out there, times where we took bathroom breaks, and I think I'll probably get down like a 4 or 5 hour video. We might parse it out, because I think what we're gonna do is we kind of found out that GM mode, it's 25 weeks, and your kind of chapters are divided into the 5 weeks. So you got your 4 shows and like a big event. I think in the future, what we're going to do, just a bit easier for us, we're probably going to do multiple seasons, but maybe every month get together for like an hour and a half and record a run through, and that'll be like that episode for the month. So we did enjoy it. And yeah, so what the issue was for us is, one, just certain lobbies. So we're trying to do the wrestling match to get us to decide our draft order. They had this weird thing where SBub said he turned the private lobby off, but like it was still popping up. So I don't know if it was a him error or there was other errors that were in the stream that were not. So it could be 2K, but random people kept trying to join. So we kept having to like back out and get in there quick. So we did that. That was different because the servers are only a week old, and it was very clunky. You could feel like, I'm not saying, listen, I lost. I was last place. Don't get me wrong. I said that was my worry, that those two have definitely played more of the wrestling part than me. Almost had them both a couple times, but like I'm used to like the X popping up for counter. You hit that, but it's definitely delayed. So that was a little janky, but that was fine. I was okay with that. And then we got to the draft. So S-Bubs was first, David was second, I was third. And then all was running well. We had to figure out, it's really weird when you select your brand and your general manager you're going to be, until you hit ready up, the whole time it says you're a CPU. So the whole time we're like trying to figure out like how do we get the human stuff like that. And then once I think S-Bub's just like kind of readied up by accident, it turned him to human. I was like, oh, that's dumb, because you can do that. You can play with computers still. So so there's that. And then we got in there, and the draft, how it works, it's just like any other sports draft where there's a bunch of superstars, and S-Bubs gets one, David gets one, I get one, you go down, and you're all drafting, I think like anywhere between 14 to 18 superstars. So you're getting in the 50, 60 rounds. So it's a lot of them. And then it was about after our 10th draft pick, it crashed. So we're like, okay, and the bad thing with GM mode is once you get past the draft, then it starts to auto save like each time. So you're good. You just have to get past there. So we're like, okay, we'll do it again, be a bit faster. We did it for the second time, and it crashed like as we're on our last picks. So like, okay. And we did it a third time. Luckily, thank goodness to David, he wrote them all. He wrote every single one down. We had the stream, but still it was a pain. And then what happened was, so the third time we completed the draft. I hit select, S-Bubs hit select, but the problem was for some reason it was not letting David hit confirm. It was just stuck on his page. So I told them the story of like, it reminded me of when we played Friday the 13th, and it was just like, remember that stream we did? It was you, me, and Taylor years ago, and we paid for like a session, and we'd have to like wait for half an hour. Like it reminded me of that. Like we'd get so close. But luckily, and kudos to the creators, what you can do is you can have a save that's offline and then bring it online. So all I did was, David had the rosters. I took the game offline, quickly drafted our rosters, honor code, didn't mess with anybody. And then we went online with it once there was a save. So you know what? I'm not sure if they did that on purpose. Maybe they knew because this is their first year of GMO online, so maybe they knew it's going to be a little buggy. And plus, what worried me, the devs were saying this is like something impressive, which it is, but they're like, oh, we didn't start working online till September. It's like this. So what's that, like September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So just like 7. And even when they say September, it's like, how functional was it? So they worked on this for half a year, which is kind of scary. So I think that's why there's some bugs. Week 1 server, but we got in there. And it was tons of fun because the AI, you can turn it to extreme, but you kind of can't, like myself, you can learn it eventually and learn what it's going to do. Playing against a human's so much more fun because of just the unpredictability of some of these moves, what's going to happen. S-Bubs screwed me over a couple times. S-Bubs had a good little lead there, but I did end up winning the whole thing, and I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, I won that season. Yeah, I made a big comeback. I can't remember last cast I was on with Kirkland and Taylor, but I told them, and I suppose isn't gonna like to hear this, but I was like, watch what I'm gonna do. My plan is I like a slow start. I'm gonna let them rise above me, everything like that, and then I'll go in for the kill. I like to pace myself. I don't want to blow my load.
I feel like these kind of modes usually snowball pretty hard. So how does that work? Like, how did you know that would work?
So I guess I'll be revealing some stress here, but Aspos figured it out because I could see on his face at one point we were in a week like 23 at 25. He's like, oh, I don't have that match unlocked. Because what happened is there's a certain match that it's called the Backstage Brawl, and it'll get you like, I think it's like 25. It gets you a good amount of fans, but the problem is it like destroys your character's stamina. So it's one of these things like you can run it and it costs a lot and it gets you a lot of fans, but you could be injuring some people. What I did is I didn't run that match to like the last 7 weeks, and I started by just one here, and then at one point I was like, why are you running so many backstage brawls? And then I think he figured it out because he played a card to take it away from me, but it was too late because one show I ran like 5 backstage brawls, and I was just, and I saved because there's certain power cards you can save that takes your fans and turns them up by 25%, and one that takes about by 20%, and then there's one where you can steal 2% of another person's fan. I hit all these cards at the same time. So I was rocking like these backstage brawls and like a 30 to 35% buffer on the fans just to boost me up. So that's what I was waiting for. And now I suppose he'll know because he'll watch it. Like I said, I think he figured it out and stuff. But kudos to David. Me and S-Bubs, like I play a lot. S-Bubs probably been doing some training. David decided he was going to go in for his first time ever and play GM mode completely clean. He didn't touch it. He's never touched it in his life. He was doing pretty well until the end. He had a lot of injuries, and that really sunk him. Too
many brawls for him.
No, just other matches can hurt you, and he just maybe ran them a bit too much. And again, he's newer, so he didn't know, but he was having to hire a lot of the local talent, which don't get you a lot of good ratings. Yeah. But no, it was a really fun time. We had a good time. Like I said, it's harder for us to do like that long session again. It was great to do that to start off, but I think now in the future, we're gonna record just like a little, chapter of like, okay, season 1, weeks 1 to 5, and go from there. And that's a good thing about our season is we can save. We had to, at the end of your season, you get to franchise tag some people. So kind of like how we do with our draft, where you can keep certain people. So we all get to keep our people, and we go next season and we'll start again. So it was tons of fun not knowing who's going to play what, the situations that were happening. And S-Bubs, don't get me wrong, I was very worried because my last point on this stream is we played a mode that I had not been training on, and that's what worried me, because what happened was when it kept crashing, I forgot to put the settings the way we wanted it to. So there's a mode called I don't remember what it is, but it's like classic mode and something else mode. I don't play that, but I play classic mode. Where classic mode, there's about 15 match types. Classic mode, they're all unlocked. The other mode is you unlock them as you go on, so you have to like do certain things to achieve them. So you got to get certain attributes or money, where it's like, okay, you got to buy a better crew or a better ring. So it's like I couldn't do a backstage brawl till my crew was like level 4. So that's my big thing is I wait till the end of the season, because if they get hurt going into season 2, everyone's stamina and injuries, they reset. So you could have a guy that's out for 12 weeks, But when season 2 comes over, he gets a little shot of something and he's healed
Right.
up. We're good to go. So that's why at the end, I just put my roster. I'm the worst boss ever. I'm making them wrestle backstage brawls, cage matches, all this stuff. But that's what I had worried because I didn't know if I was going to be able to unlock the backstage brawl. And I did, and I didn't play it. But when we did that mode, I was really worried because like, oh man, that was my strategy going in. So luckily I put some resources there and I have in the future now. But so yeah, that was the stream. But yeah, Espubs had a big lead on me for a while, but I was just waiting. I was stacking up on some stuff there. So but he was good. He had me on the ropes. I legitimately thought there was a chance I was going to lose. They did better, both of them. Even Dave for his first time did better than I thought, and it was it was a really good time, and I'm very happy this exists, and it's just great to play with people and not, you can only play the computer so much, and that's only been the option other than like we did the stream when you're by people, but like I don't have that often in my life where people are coming over to play GM mode, so
Once you got it up and running, like were you running into many more bugs and things, or was it pretty smooth once you got past the like mostly the draft thing?
it was smooth for the most part. There's a section after every big event that you can do trades with each other. That crashed twice on us. So I'd say after the draft, we had 3 more crashes, but that was within a 5-hour span. So that's pretty good. So like what, every maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, pretty much, we'd get another crash, which is not bad for like a server that's 8 days old and it's the first time ever they're doing this. So it was risky because there was even at one point where it said like the 2K servers were down, and I was like, oh man, don't
Yeah, I saw that.
don't do
scary.
this to us here.
I saw the life fading from your eyes in that moment.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, we promote this, and like because we moved it because like the other dates didn't work for us. But no, so it was, we always knew it was this screen. But that is the best thing, is with almost every kind of screen you advance to, it's always auto saving. So the second it crashed, we just go right back into it, and we'd have to do a couple things, like we would all quit out of the game and then reboot it and then go back in. So once we got past that draft part, it was pretty good. So I think in the future we might try to draft one more time, but if it crashes, we might just draft where they look at my screen and I just like draft for them, like again, honor system where I'll pick what they want and stuff like that. So we're gonna see. But that's, like I said, kudos to those developers, whether they just did it as like a perk or they knew there might be some issues. Taking it offline is perfect, because if it wasn't and that draft kept crashing on us, we couldn't have played. We would have been stuck on drafting and drafting. So that's why I'm gonna keep that version up there, but I think I'm gonna edit a version where it probably will only be about 4 to 5 hours, and I might split them apart where don't play the draft stuff again, all that things and stuff. So but yeah, it was, other than that, we had pretty little problems, and no stream problems somehow. I couldn't believe it, but it was tons of fun.
And so when I've watched you play GM mode, you're simulating all the matches. So were you guys doing a mix of that? Were you playing the matches or just simulating all of them? How would that work?
There's 2 types of simulation. You can't, I think that's something they're going to add next year. People were complaining about it, but you can't play or spectate matches online. I'm not sure if that would have just taken down their complete server. What I usually do for speed is I would simulate the whole card. So I'd make the card and then just simulate all, see what the results are. But because the only thing, which was fine for time in GM mode, if you play, let's say you come over to my house and you and me play GM mode, it would be, I would book my show and then hand the remote to you. With the online mode, we're all booking at the same time. So that's why we did the simulate 1 by 1, because then Espubs and David could explain their matches. People could see my screen. Yeah. People could see my screen and see, do what I'm doing. I would talk a little bit, not to spoil too much things for them, but for them, you can't see what their thought process is. So that's why we did the slower simulation, where you don't watch the match, but you see each match. There's a 1, 2, 3, and you see who wins, and you see what a promo does, who's hurt, and everything like that. So we did a slower simulation just so we could all explain what we're thinking with their show. And there's some fun moments when, like, the person that's a local talent that has a ring skill of like 20 and they beat like a 90, and it's a fun moment and stuff. And we had a couple, Captain Drog, Sensational Starla. I'm trying to think of this other talent. There's another one. Oh, Perfect Penelope was running game on David's roster. She was like, her gimmick is she's like a tennis court like starlet lady. Nice. And she should not have been beating the superstar she was, but she was. And that's always a fun thing in GM mode. Like the way it simulates or algorithms is like sometimes there is just some shitty wrestler that keeps doing good, and that's the fun thing where it's like this person that you just brought on to, like, I don't know, be here for a couple of weeks is like putting on 4-star matches or winning championships. So that's always like the fun kink with, or your people are injured and you need to make someone a star. So I'm going to pick Captain Drog here and see what he can do, So
Yeah. Yeah, and then I was thinking about it. Like I kind of compare it to like when Mario Strikers came out, and we were planning to do that tournament a few days after, or I think the weekend of it came out. So it's
Yeah.
like it was a different mindset playing that game in the first few days, where I wasn't playing it as I normally would. It was like I got to get as good at this game as I possibly can in the first few
Mhm.
days, learn everything I can. So how was your like experience? I guess just been playing the standard game, kind of preparing for the stream and stuff.
Really good. I prepared a lot. I already got 3 days worth on this game. It's been out for a week.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was going there. Luckily, the girls they were skiing last weekend, and Emily knew I've been waiting for this because I think I talked about this last time I was on with you a little bit. But like I said, the changes they had made that they really want you to play the bigger roster, and something I didn't understand until I started to play it was they made the matches like it went from 4 to 5, which is a big deal. Promos went from 3 to 4, which is a big deal. But also in the game, they do a lot more of injuring your stars or your stars. There's these new emails they did like, Dylan got to some mischievous stuff up this week and he's suspended for 2 weeks. So
Right.
that usually in the last version, I'd say like something like that would happen, but they'd be like, or you can pay this fine. And I'm a guy that always likes to keep a lot of money, so I'd pay the fine to make sure. But there's many emails here where it's just like, no, your star is just gone. So they really, I don't know if it's other people like myself complaining of like they really were trying to make you want a bigger roster. Because as I've said before, it's like they tout, oh, we got over 300 wrestlers. It's like, well, I don't want to just have 12 on a show. Like I will, like
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to have. To me, if I can have 20 plus, that's great, you know. And that's not even counting. There's DLC coming, and you can download wrestlers. Just the base game. It's like there's lots of wrestlers, so that's the biggest thing is just having a lot of superstars. They definitely made the algorithm a bit harder, even though I think I've figured out. So that's why I like playing with people because it's just like I played. You can do seasons on my main save. I'm at season I think like 14 right now. I've gone so that's 14 times
Great.
25. That's the amount of weeks. But yeah, it's great. So all the things they've done with GMO are like super plus. Like there's a few more things I want, but even if they say, hey, this is the base game, we're gonna tweak it a little bit. I'm pretty happy with it. Online's a huge bonus as well, but so that got very addictive as far as I always am addicted to GMO, but the new changes they did, so that was tons of fun. And then yeah, to like get ready for the matches, there's two other modes. There's a mode called My Rise, which is you do like a creator wrestler, and it's like you're training to go up to the big league. So you start as like a little dweeb
Okay.
and you're trying to,
So is that
become a
like kind of like the
champion.
My Island mode, but just single player version?
Yeah, and there's a story too. So the wrestlers are
Oh,
like
okay.
voice acting, and like
Oh,
the
okay.
story is like you just got to Raw and someone attacks you with a mask, and you're trying to figure out who.
It sounds familiar to
It does sound
story.
familiar, yeah. So, and then there's like a group of wrestlers that are doing a mutiny. They've like created their own brand and stuff, and they even have like I can't remember what it is, but you have three. It's very much like you remember Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 where you had like diplomatic, like angry, like you had like certain responses that had like an icon to show like what type of
Oh, right. Yeah,
emotion.
with the Civil
Yeah.
War storyline stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where this game had. I don't know if the other ones have because I haven't played a real wrestling game in these type of modes in at least 10 years. But yeah, there's like an arrogant one, there's a diplomatic one, and then there's like a nice, true, like baby face one, and you can kind of make your decisions there. So that's been fun, and you get unlockable. So I played that because I made my creator wrestler, and I thought, what a perfect way to like learn the move set that I chose. I play that mode so far, and it's actually not too bad because the voice acting usually in these games are dreadful. Like the wrestlers get in there, they're probably tired after the match, they record it and leave. This actually feels like some of these wrestlers have some like passion in their voice. Maybe the
Ooh.
checks are bigger, but no, it's a fun little mode so far. Like you're climbing through the ranks, and I enjoy it. I don't always love like I don't like games where the heroes or wrestlers are in them and it's like but you can't play as them, you can play as your creator wrestler, so it's never my bag per se, but I'll probably fall through with it. And then there's this other mode I did to practice for the wrestling too. It's called My Faction, which is it's a card trading. You can't trade, but you collect cards. It's all like cosmetic stuff, but you like open up like digital cards. It's all randomized and you're seeing what you can get. And that's the biggest thing, is that you're trying to unlock characters like with alternate attires or from different eras. So it's like I love CM Punk, you can unlock the 2010 version of CM Punk where he has long hair and he's all in an evil group and stuff like that. So the only problem is it's definitely a mode that's like it's trying to get you to do the microtransaction. It's very grindy. It's one of these things where, let's say they pick all these cities, right? So it's like you can go on this mode called World Tour. And let's say I want to get that CM Punk card. So I want to go to Chicago. Well, you can't go to Chicago until you beat Orlando. Okay, so I got to go. I beat Orlando. And they're always just like challenges, like win a Royal Rumble, win a ladder match, win a table match. And it's always with just the cards you have. So whichever you randomly got, you have to play as that character. So if you don't have great characters, you just kind of have to power through with it because you want to unlock this other stuff. So, and eventually you'll get stuff like, I got enough characters now where I'm like, okay, I like all these people. But the problem that I had with this, and other people do, it is very grindy. Like, if you're not going to pay, you're going to have to grind. It's less grinding than last year, so that's good. But the problem was, okay, so let's say I beat the Orlando tour. The Chicago tour unlocks, great. So then I'm starting to go through that, and they all have like 5 matches you have to get through. And the problem is, so I get through the 4 matches, and I'm on the 5th match. It's like, okay, if I beat this, I can unlock my CM Punk. But the problem is, it's like, oh, to play this 5th match, you need this type of card, which can only be unlocked in this city. So it's like you have to go beat a different city. And my worry is that city is going to have the same thing where it's like, oh, you have to beat that one. So I wouldn't mind the grind if it was like, hey, pick a city and then you get that card, great. But it's literally making you that you're probably going to have to play the majority of these cities in these matches, and they're pretty easy for the most part. They're just, they can be fun, but it's just kind of like I just kind of want the card, so I can get this superstar, get this attire. So I kind of fell off it. I will go back to, because there is some people I do want to unlock, but so it's a little grindy, but 2K is not getting any they're not getting any money out of me there. I spent enough on this game. I'll grind to get the outfits I'll like. I'll grind to go get RVD 97, It'll take a little time, but you have to play it in batches, because the problem is when you have your cards, sometimes it's like, okay, this match you need a level green card, and let's say I have 3 wrestlers that are level green card, and you're playing that whole tour, it can kind of get a little repetitive because you're just playing with the same 3 wrestlers like for a couple hours, and that's where it's like, okay, they're easy enough, it's fun enough, but it's like, again, a roster of 300 people, I'd like to switch it up. And it's the worst when sometimes you're playing with, for a while I had like a deck of women that like I didn't like any of them with it. So it's just like not like the women personally, just like the way they played. So it's like I'm playing this whole tour of 5 matches with all these girls. Like I would never play with this character because I don't like their fighting style. It's like, think about in Smash, if they're like, hey, you're gonna go in tournament, Dylan, but you gotta play with your least favorite fighter. It's like, okay, like this is fun, but it's like not the exact level I want. So I will play those modes continually, but it's still about GM mode. And there's still stuff that, even whether it's this year or even stuff from the past, that I keep playing, I find like little things or little ways to do something, and I'm trying to learn, because there's new things here, trying to learn like how the algorithm works this way, watching other streamers do it. So it's a very fun mode. I'm looking very forward to a rematch soon with David and Esmos. Nice. I think we're going to do that after probably WrestleMania, because we got Gimmick coming up. We got like 3 episodes to record soon, which is a rarity, but it was tons of fun. And like I said, I'm very excited. I'm planning that for our draft, or for our 24-hour stream. I'm planning you, Kirkland, Taylor, and I'm gonna, even now, like there was in the Creator Wrestler community, 2 of the biggest downloads where someone made Sydney Sweeney and someone made Jenna Ortega. So like I said, I'm gonna give you guys a roster of 100 characters of just superstars, Master Chiefs, people. It's gonna be great. So that's what I'm gonna do there. But no, it's been a good step up, to the point that other than I wonder with servers turning off for next year, it's gonna be something that I don't know what they're gonna do to make me buy it. They're gonna have to do something, but even like myself with Madden, now that it's on EA Play, I don't buy them. But before, I'd usually skip a year or 2 and wait for some new stuff. With the GM mode, they kind of gave me majority of the stuff I want. So the only thing I might do that is if they say, hey, we're closing down the 2K25 servers at this point, you got to get 26, then maybe that's the situation. But it's tough. It's one of these things where don't know what else they can do, because the other things that people want, like people were really mad that you couldn't play online during GMO, like a match or spectate. For us, that didn't matter. Like we weren't going to play each other in an actual match. The spectating, that would take forever to watch like all these matches. So it's like the things people were mad about, I didn't want those things. So that's what I'm saying, that next year, if they make some improvements and it's nothing for me, I might not be dropping the $100, but we'll see about the servers. So
I want to hear about your created character. Wait, are
Yes.
you playing as Vengeance in this, or do you got a new persona?
No,
What's
I
going
play
on?
as Stress now. I play as Stress now.
Okay.
It's other than the once in a while Geek First wrestling match. It's the only way I get to vicariously live through a wrestler because I give him all the move sets that I would give myself, like all the plan, like whether it's the stuff I do in the Gauntlet or stuff when I was a kid, be like, oh, I do this move, I do that. I in the game they made it like a complete ripoff. As a wrestler, I always wanted to. I haven't done it for Geek First. I should before we stop these matches before I'm too old. I always want to do a half paint of face like a David Bowie, how he has like the star kind of thing, but or like the lightning bolt. But it's funny in the game, they literally that's what I picked for my character. It is looks like a complete ripoff of David Bowie. It's just the exact same logo almost, but you know, a little bit different. So I'm like, okay, I'll use that. Like if I was a wrestler, I wouldn't have fully ripped it off. I would have done something different, but that's cool. And then I go with the almost the side quest aesthetic here. I go with the green and the purple. That's my, you know, it's just a rip off of Joker, but like
Yeah,
those
the
are my
Clown
colors.
Prince moment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I did that. I gave myself some. Oh, I can't remember what type of gear. The creator wrestler mode is crazy. All the stuff like you can put on a pair of pants, and then there's like 6 different things you can edit the pants for, and it's whether it's material, the color, the size, the
material.
shape. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can do the material.
Wait, like polyester, cotton. You can like. What
It's
are
a
we talking
bunch
here?
of stuff. You can do velvet. You can do like if you
Ooh.
look at David's thing he did. I can't remember what it's not called fluorescent, but you can make it that all your clothes like glow whenever you're wearing them. Like, and it's just crazy. And like I go very basic. Like here's a face model. Here's this. But same thing of like I know that's why the creative community is so big with this because with the faces it's like okay, you pick your face. Like how much you want to change your eyebrow? How much you want to change your eyelid? How much you want to change your nostril? It's like I don't got time for all that.
Yeah.
Like I just pick a template. But yeah, I pick Trav Snell and I give him my same size. I made him 235, made him 5'9", so he did look quite shorter than a lot of other wrestlers when I'm playing against him. But you know, had to stick true to life. And then yeah, I play him as a bad guy too. Set that way. So I got a lot of
Ooh,
like
yeah.
one of my special maneuvers is like I spit mist at somebody. So that's that's a big thing. So S Bubs had a fireball. I was not expecting that though. You can do a fireball. And he did that mid match.
That's crazy.
And, yeah, I was very mad about the match because I almost had a win and it was taken from me. But that's okay. All goes around. But yeah, no, that's just it. He wears the trunk. He wears not the, you know how they kind of have like the trunks that are like very show their whole thigh. That's not me. I got more like the MMA trunks, more similar to boxers. That's my kind of go. Got some big boots and knee pads. I don't like wrestlers that wear shoes, so I got the boots. And you got to wear knee pads because you'll just destroy your knees. And then the tape to pan. So maybe for my last match, I'll
Wait,
just
the
have to
knee pads,
recreate-
like, is that actually a mechanic, or are you just to really get in character? You're like, I got to put these pads on.
to get in character because wrestlers have
Okay.
said before like, oh, not wearing knee pads ruined my life like that. Like I have multiple like injuries. I have to wear this god, what are they, the braces, like
Right.
it's one of those things wrestlers say like put knee pads on. So maybe for my final wrestling match in real life I'll try and recreate what I look like in the game, but I will not be as jacked nor as good looking. So yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, that's fun to hear about that. I'm glad you're liking it. It sounds like
Yes.
I know they spew these games out like at a frequent basis, but it sounds like they put a lot of content in there, a lot of different modes, a lot of new stuff as well, and then just like refining the stuff that's already there. And yeah, it's a 2K game, so it's going to be microtransaction,
Of
and
course,
it's also
yeah.
buggy as hell at launch. But yeah, it seems like, you know, probably a big reason there's a lot of bugs is because they put so much in there. So it's, you know, kind of a pro and a con, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? It did better for me in the draft than, or like it did happy for me. I think right now it's in like an 81 or something Metacritic.
Okay.
Like
That's good.
that's perfect for me because I thought because like when that the first reviews came out, the island was very mixed. Not that it was buggy, it just felt like, and lots of these streamers I don't even think are a Metacritic, but they're just seemed like it was a love-hate mode. So I really worried because remember I drafted because of that because I thought, oh, maybe this new thing will be really cool. So I think it kind of balanced out. But it being like 80s green, like I'll take that. It's like it's no South Park, so I'll take that all day long. It's like I think it's higher than one of my other games I had, so I'm pretty happy with that score. So
Right on. Cool.
yeah.
Are you just, is that all you're playing the next couple months? I knew you, like, in the last couple episodes of Sidequest, you've given me, like, this is my schedule. I'm playing Alan Wake and I'm going to this game. Like, you've been very regimented. Is this game just going to throw all that? Are you just going to play only this until Death Stranding in June now, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough because my schedule is thrown off because obviously you guys talked about last week. I did not think Death Stranding was in June. I even thought it could be. I think I said in the draft. I thought there could be a chance it's next year, and I thought if
Yeah.
it's not next year, it's probably in the fall, the same way the first game was. Right? That was in the fall, right? It was like November or something.
It
I
was
think Death
November.
Stranding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I thought that was that. So we're in April, or we're in March, gonna be April. I think I'd probably like to at least do Alan Wake 2 before,
Nice.
because I loved that game, and luckily it's kind of like the extra live stream when you do a 7-hour stream of GMO. You're like, okay, I'm going to take a break for like a little bit, and plus like now if we kind of have it baked in that maybe every month me and the boys might like get together and play like a hour or two sessions, like okay, I might hold off a bit for that because I like playing it, but like that might be more fun just to kind of make it more the juice flowing. So I think that's kind of the plan is WWE, Alan Wake, and then if Death Stranding doesn't get delayed, Death Stranding. I thought about like tinkering doing a Death Stranding one playthrough, but it's like, do I have time for that? Probably not. I would like to, but if not, I'm just gonna have to fire up a YouTube video, and I'd like to maybe not watch the whole cutscene movie, but I remember a lot of the big beats, but still I want to remember all the specific stuff because I guarantee that's a game that's gonna refer back to some stuff, and we're gonna be like, oh, I don't get that. The same way like with Daredevil, when it's like they refer back to stuff, it's like, okay, I watched the show, so I have an idea. But no, I'm very excited for Death Stranding in June. That was a nice surprise because the way Kojima was talking about that game, I'm like, oh, we're in trouble. And he's like, oh yeah, it's only 1/3 done. I'm like, oh boy, that's not great. 1/3, and he was saying that like in November of last
That
year.
was
So like,
recently, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, there's no way this game's coming out. So I think when Taylor drafted, I'm like, that's a dead game right there. But no, I think that's gonna be it. So hopefully, probably April, Mayish, I'll come on here and talk about Alan Wake because I'd like to close that loop off before I move on. But yeah, Death Stranding threw me for a loop. So, but yeah, WWE for a little bit. Got some more things to do in there. So,
Right on. Cool. Good stuff. How about we take our first break? We'll take an intermission between seasons, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. Do they even call it intermission? What do they call it? Just like a break in between the seasons? What do they call it in WWE?
well, they don't take time off.
Oh, okay.
That's
But
why
you're
there's so
saying the
many people
characters
injured.
get healed up, so there must be like some time in between there.
Oh,
right?
that's why I said in the video game they just like shoot them with a fucking needle or something like that.
Okay.
No, literally,
Just fill them up with the substance.
literally, WrestleMania is on a Sunday, and then like Raw's Monday. It's always like they have no off season. There's been many wrestlers trying to like, hey, it'd be nice, but they get paid lots of money. But no, so that's where it's just video game magic that they all get
Video
healed
game
up.
magic.
So yeah,
Fair enough. I only have one new game that I've been playing, and it's not a new game; it's an old game, but it recently hit Nintendo Switch Online. So, have you heard of Donkey Kong on the Game Boy? It's kind of known as Donkey Kong 94 because obviously the original arcade game is also just called Donkey Kong, but that's kind of the differentiation of that one.
I think I haven't like. Is it just a remake of the OG on there, or no?
No, it starts
not
like
heard of
that,
that.
but then it takes a
Okay.
twist. Yeah, so kind of going all the way back. So one of my favorite games on the Game Boy Advance is Mario versus Donkey Kong. It's kind of a fun
Yes.
offshoot series. They had the remake last year of that game, and then there's been other games in the series. Like there was one on the DS, one on the 3DS, and it's kind of the idea of you're playing as Mario, and it starts out in a very similar structure to that original Donkey Kong arcade game. But then they add all sorts of things on top of that. And I didn't even realize until recently that Mario vs. Donkey Kong is not the first game in the series technically, even though it's like, doesn't have a number next to it. So it seems like it should be the first. But it turns out that on the Game Boy, there was a game called Donkey Kong, which, yeah, as I said, has now been kind of known as Donkey Kong 94 as the differentiation there. And it's kind of like the first game of that series. So, and this just hit Nintendo Switch Online finally the last couple weeks. But I've been very much looking forward to play this game ever since I've kind of heard about it. I'd never heard about it when I was younger, and a Game Boy is one of my blind spots as a Nintendo gamer because Advance is when I jumped on for the first time there. So yeah, the structure of the game, it's funny. Like it starts out and you do the first 4 levels from the original Donkey Kong arcade game, but like immediately, like I've never liked that game just because the controls are so rigid and stiff that it's like this is not a fun video game to play. Although I understand it has like a place in history, but immediately it's like, oh yeah, playing through those levels, but with like a really clean feeling movement, like in that original Donkey Kong arcade game. Like if you jump, whatever speed you're moving, like that is you're going to move that speed, right? You can't like adjust or turn around in midair or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this game, you can move around like that, and you can do the thing like the Mario 64 thing, where if you're running in one direction and then you turn around and jump, you like do kind of like a big backflip thing. You can do like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong thing, where you like do a handstand, then do like a bigger jump. So you just have like a much wider move set. So yeah, it starts out with the same premise. You go through those first order levels. They're a lot easier than they are in the arcade game because of that movement, because they're the exact same. But then it offshoots into that in Donkey Kong. Normally that's when you beat him and you save. I think it's Pauline, not Princess Peach in that game.
Yeah.
But you save Pauline, the game ends, you get your score, and then that's the end of the arcade game. Or I guess it loops back and you just do the levels over and over again. But in this, it kind of starts out like that, but then it offshoots into like, 8 or 9 worlds of other levels building off that stuff. But yeah, it kind of changes the gameplay there, where every level is kind of a puzzle platformer. So you're going through this level, there's enemies. You pretty much have to go grab a key and then get to the door and then exit. But then, there's all sorts of like levers and ladders and enemy types and all these things that kind of layer on top of it. And I think it's fun, especially going back to this one after playing some of the later games in the series, because I think once Mario vs. Donkey Kong introduced like this mechanic where there's these the idea is that Mario like owned a toy factory or something, and then Donkey Kong like stole all these toys, and so the game is like you going to collect these toys back.
Was this on top of him being a plumber, or did he have a different profession at this time?
I think in this canon he's like not a plumber, he's just a toy salesman, or maybe he was a plumber enough to make enough money to like make this toy
always
empire.
wanted toys still.
Yeah. But anyway, that's like the premise of it. And so like the game is, you're saving these toys, you have to like figure out the puzzle way to get them to the exit kind of thing. And then like the later games, like the DS one, you're using the touch screen to like control where they move and stuff like that. And so it seems like that's kind of the unifying theme between like puzzle platformer basic stuff, but like the minis, as they call them, like those are the things that kind of tie the games together. But so far this game doesn't have any of that aspect to it. It's really just going through the levels, grab the key, get to the exit, and then like dodge enemies or take out the enemies on the way. So I don't know, maybe there's a world where it introduces that. I'm still only a couple worlds in, but yeah, really fun kind of history lesson to go back to. And as I mentioned, like since Game Boy is a blind spot for me in general, and SNES, those are like the two consoles I didn't have as a kid. Yeah. So it's been really nice with Nintendo Switch Online, since they have such a big amount of the library on there, going back and kind of filling in those blind spots for myself. And when I've done that for a lot of these Game Boy games, they're not super fun all the time. Like they're really short. They're not super interesting. Like the Game Boy cartridge had so little space on it, so the games just don't have a whole lot going on. Like they're pretty simple, and of course there is a few standouts there, but for the most part, I'm like, yeah, I can see why someone would have loved this game back in the 90s, but like playing it today, I'm not too interested in it. But this game seems like it has a pretty decent amount of content. And it's like interesting and cool, and then also just because I'm a fan of the series, it's fun to go back and see like the actual origin of it, even though I thought I was pretty well familiar with the origin. So it's been a really fun time. I think the only thing it's hard at times, it gets tricky, and I think a big part of that is just like the visuals of it, because obviously the Game Boy had like whatever it was, like four shades, like not even a color palette, but just like 4 shades or whatever. So it's really hard to differentiate like the backgrounds from the foregrounds, the things you can step on and things you can't step on. So that's the only thing that's been half the puzzle, is like where can I walk in this? But interesting, even like some mechanics in here that I don't even remember from Mario versus Donkey Kong, in terms of like hitting somewhere to like create a platform and things like this. So it's pretty basic gameplay, pretty small levels that you'd be able to like visually see on like a small Game Boy screen. But it's been really fun to go back and check that one out. So it's on Nintendo Switch Online, easy to go for anyone to go check it out.
So when you say Game Boy, is it just the Game Boy specifically, or was it the Game Boy Advance, like all those type of handhelds you didn't have as well?
No, Game Boy Advance was the first one I had. Okay. So I guess I missed Game Boy and then Game Boy Color / Pocket. Like I guess those are all kind of the same, but little variations on each other. So, but the Advance was kind of, these are new games. You can't play Game Boy games on here. So
because when you're talking about the color palette and hard to see things, did you ever have one of those like magnifying glass things you could attach to a Game Boy?
No, because thankfully I had the Game Boy Advance SP, so it actually had the backlight on it, right? Okay. So you could actually see it, whereas like the regular Game Boy Advance didn't have the backlight, so you it's really hard to see shit. You had to have like the little lamp thing, or you had to play it like under a light.
The lamp thing, and then I had something that it was awful because it was clunky, but it was like some sort of thing that would go over the screen. So not only would it light, it would like kind of magnify it in a way and make it bigger.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Because especially sometimes if you were on a car ride playing that thing midday, you were like like
Yeah.
trying to see your best. It was awful. You'd have to wait till
Trying to
nighttime
like line up with the street lights and like
Yeah,
moving back
yeah,
and
exactly.
forth.
So this light magnifying thing, I remember having that. So I just got flashbacks when you said hard to see. It's like
Yeah.
I remember Mario Kart, Batman Sungji, like all this stuff is just like, oh, I could not see it. Oh, the Hobbit game too. Like I had that. That was
Yeah.
tough because it was a lot of bright just browns because he was in the Shire, and it's like, where's Bilbo going? So
Yeah, thankfully I got to skip that. I mean, I love the form factor and I just love the look of the Game Boy Advance. Like just the base model looks so clean. I really like it. But yeah, thankfully I did have the SP, which was like the clamshell one, right? That opens up. And yeah, had a backlight on it. So I never really had to experience that. But did you have the original Game Boy as well, or just were you just jumping with the
I
Advance as well?
did, but I think I had like a hand-me-down that had like a couple games because I feel like I got that from somebody. But the Game Boy Advance definitely was a birthday present. I remember having the Game Boy, but I just remember spending my memories are all Game Boy Advance.
Okay.
That's what I remember. So I think I had one, like I said, it was a hand me down from a cousin or something. It was like, here's some games that I think like not too long after got the actual Advance. So that was more my speed. So and I think I played a few games here and there that maybe people borrowed, but yeah, Game Boy Advance was more
Hmm.
of my legacy there. So
Yeah, no, I feel like the Game Boy to me seems like maybe it was a bit more experimental in some of the games. Is like how can we take like an NES or SNES game, I forget like the release dates of all these things,
mhm.
and then like spin it on its head where it's like we can do some weird smaller idea because of how limited space we have on these cartridges. Like let's just do something weird and different instead of like the fully fledged games that we've had on these previous consoles. And so yeah, I'm definitely seeing that here too, where like this is a fun, interesting, weird idea of like how can we take the original Donkey Kong but like add more content to it, and like it's not an arcade game, so how can we change the
Yeah.
structure? And I think it's really fun to especially start the game with those four levels and then like veer off into like its own interesting thing afterwards, which of course has turned into like this franchise that I mean had a new entry even though it was a remake last year, so it's still going strong all the I guess 30 years later, which is pretty cool. So yeah, fun little history lesson here. I'm gonna play through the rest of this game because
Nice.
it's cool and fun. Like it just plays really well. Like it just the movement of Mario feels really good. And I
That's
think
good.
that's sometimes does not happen when you go back to games from the 90s. It's like, oh, I don't want to touch this thing anymore. So yeah, they somehow got it right all the way back then.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's really all. And once again, just avowed. So I'm not
Yep.
gonna harp on that game more. I've talked about it enough. Let's move on. Talk about a little bit of Star Wars here. So a few days ago, Taylor or you, one of you two, posted like an article of I guess an announcement of an announcement that on Star
Yep.
Wars Day in April, we're finally gonna get more information on Respawn's Star Wars strategy game, which.
Mhm.
When I saw that, I completely forgot that this was a thing that was announced because we get a
I did
lot of
too.
announcements,
Yeah.
but
I
we
thought this
didn't
was
really have.
new.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
yeah.
I thought so too. Even though I'm sure we talked about it on Sidequest at some point, but
Yeah.
we didn't have any information. We don't have much more information now, but I think it was just kind of put it back in the circulation of the mind, and so now I'm thinking about it a bit more. But yeah, it turns out that I guess back in I think it was 2022, after I guess just in conversation with Star Wars Jedi and talking about the future of that series, they announced that also through EA and Respawn to some extent, there are two other games. There's a first-person shooter that they were going to do, and then a Star Wars strategy game. The first-person shooter has since been canceled. But the strategy game is still in development. It's kind of being worked on by Respawn, who made the Star Wars Jedi games, but it seems like they're more of like I create a support studio. Feels like undermined. It's almost like they're creative top level idea, but then there's a studio called Bit Reactor that's making the actual game, which is a new studio, although it's helmed by a guy who came from Firaxis, who makes Civilization and XCOM. So that's sort of an interesting, and Midnight Suns, therefore, like all the Firaxis stuff. So
Yeah.
this is, a strategy game. We don't really know much about it. I've seen some articles talking about this being like a turn-based game, although I don't know if I can see like an official confirmation of that. So maybe that came up somewhere. Of course, we'll find out more in April. But I think this just kind of, maybe I'm more interested in this news now that I've played a bunch of Midnight Suns, but I'm like, man, I would love a Star Wars version of Midnight Suns,
yeah.
and I feel like it would work so well just with like force powers and like how movement focused Star Wars is as in terms of like the action of it. I feel like it would work really well. So, and you obviously love Midnight Suns, was kind of maybe your first big foray into that genre. So I don't know. Now that this game's kind of back top of mind, how are you feeling about this? Even though once again, we're just kind of going off rumors and murmurs right now.
Well, and obviously it might come up again later, but don't get me wrong, Midnight Suns re-invoked that love, but where I got the love was from KOTOR, because don't forget, that's a turn-based fighting style where it's the
Right, but not like a
whole...
tactics game, I
No,
guess,
of
which
course,
this
not a
seems like it
tactics
might be.
game. But that was like, because I feel like there's tons of people that played that and were like, I hate that type of play style. And I thought I would have, but I was like, oh, I enjoy this. So,
Hmm.
yeah, because it's the same thing I was, because it was the way they phrased it though, because it was, he said it was turn-based tactics, but I feel like, isn't Midnight Suns classified as something else, or is it the other way around? Like, I feel like it's like when I search turn-based tactic games, even on Google, like all these games were coming up, and it wasn't Midnight Suns, and so I was like, so is this exactly what it is? Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm with you that that's what I would love. There's tons of characters. I feel like that's a game where you can kind of level out, like, okay, how do you have a Darth Maul versus a Han Solo? Well, in a turn-based, that's the fun of it, right? Is Han Solo has some grenades, has some power-ups, whatever it
Hmm.
is working with other power cards, etc. So I would love that. I wonder how that would work. Like, it's kind of similar to how Suicide Squad, see how what happened to Avengers. I wonder what would happen here, because they would have saw that Midnight Suns, great reviewed game. I feel like fan reception was pretty positive, but like sold nothing, right? Like, it's a
Yeah.
game that you can just get for pennies now. So it's a thing of like, do you not look at that and you're making a somewhat similar game? And I would argue that as of right now, even though it's had a couple tougher years, that Marvel is like a bigger brand than Star Wars. So you would think if the Marvel version of the game's not selling, what you gonna do here? So I hope that's nothing that scared them away. And I don't know if it would be like card based or whatever it be, but
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. This is a game that's definitely, I hope it's not just like a cinematic trailer and like this is the game. Like, I hope there's some details. At least with Star Wars Celebration, it is kind of a lighter year this year, so I think some of these panels will be longer in the stuff they actually do have.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm hoping it's something, even something similar in the vein of Midnight Suns, because I would, oh, a Star Wars game like that, I would love. There's been so many times, even this past, I guess we're in the New Year, but last year, of like, I didn't start playing Midnight Suns because I didn't want to be addicted. But there's been times where it's like, oh, it's like the Green Goblin Master is calling me, like, oh, you want to go do some more rounds and stuff.
I feel
But
like it tickles the same part of the brain as GM mode.
it
Like
does.
picking your
It's the
rosters,
managing,
leveling
it's
them
all
up.
that
Yeah.
stuff, you know. So, but
Got to deal with injuries, put people in the sauna. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, exactly. The sauna, you have the swimsuits, the alternate attires and stuff. But yeah, I'm very curious. At least because, like you said, that shooter was canceled. Kotar's very iffy, but at least we got
Yeah.
like some like positive statements, somewhat of like it's not dead. We'll show something cool soon. And then you got this. I'm kind of hoping some of these Star Wars games are back to cooking.
Hmm.
You know, so
Yeah, no, one thing you mentioned there on Midnight Suns, I think was a good call out was the card aspect of it, because I feel like that was such a turnoff for people. I mean, one maybe it was like, okay, Marvel Tactics, okay, that's an interesting idea, but then you have these cards in there, it gets a bit confusing. And for me, I always saw it as just like a fun, more creative way than like having a menu, right? Like rather than having like a list of moves that you have
yes,
access to, it was just like contextualized through these cards and they could build other mechanics off of it. And I think it worked for what that is. And obviously, me and you love that game, but I think for a lot of people that was like maybe confusing and a bit of a turnoff. And I think if this game is to take any lesson from what not to do with that game, maybe it would just be like not have the card system. Maybe that's something
yeah.
that's too confusing or weird. And I also think it makes more sense for Marvel. I feel like Marvel collecting cards, collecting Marvel stuff is a very, it's almost like part of that brand. Whereas I don't know if that's so much a thing with Star Wars. I don't know. I'm sure there's Star Wars collectible cards, but I've never
Yeah.
heard them mentioned before. So I don't know if that's a thing.
And even myself, like, as I remember, it was when they did show the cards, I was a little worried about it because, like,
Yeah.
like, luckily, like, I still liked what they were showing enough. I liked the idea, and I even like Gwent, so it's like, okay, like, was not a complete turn off for me. It was just out of so like even everything how that game got revealed and showed, it was like, okay, they're making a Midnight Suns game, and that was never, I don't think they said it right away it was like a tactics game or anything. Or maybe I'll walk it back, there was rumors of a Midnight Suns game, so I don't think any of us thought it was a
Hmm.
tactics card game. I thought, okay, could be like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but like more darker characters, or like X-Men, or even that Justice League game. Maybe it's going to be like a smaller roster but something more actiony. And then I think one, when it wasn't that, that was Strange Reveal on the cards. That was a huge turn. There's so many people that say, "Oh yeah, the cards." I still haven't played because of that. But it's like, as always, if you've never heard us rage about or praise it, just give it a chance. It's super cheap
So
now.
good.
So, but I agree with you that maybe not cards, but maybe there's some sort of like Star Wars type of gimmick. I'm trying to think what you could use as far as pieces or like something that is, not credits because that's so too close to cards. I'm trying to think of what could be their form other than like you said, it's just like a list of moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I do hope that there's a lot of lesson. Like we're also it's maybe pulling out of nowhere to compare it to Midnight Suns just because like okay, this guy worked at Firaxis. I don't even know if he had any relation to actually working on Midnight Suns. Like it's not like he was the creative director of that game or anything. So who knows if there's that comparison there? But I do think there's a couple lessons. Like one thing that I think was really, and even to your point where you're like, is this a tactics game? And I think what made people feel like what was so different about it is most tactics games are like on a grid, right? And that like Midnight Suns took things off a grid. And of course there is
Yes.
kind of still a grid like in the framework of the game and how it works in terms of movement and all that stuff, but it just it doesn't feel as rigid in that way, which I think, in one of the interviews I was listening to about that game, it was mostly just like, yeah, it felt weird for like superheroes to be tied down to this grid. It just didn't fit with the superhero fantasy, which is a lot of big reason why people would play this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I want other games to steal because I think it is really cool. And I think Mario Rabbids kind of did a little bit of that too, like taking things a little more freeform. And I think that would work really well for Star Wars. But the other thing that made sense to me is just like how movement focused Midnight Suns was, is like pushing people into each other, pushing them into an object, pushing them just over here so that you can get a big AoE attack and hit multiple people at the same time. I just feel like if you're having Jedis as like playable characters in here, that makes sense to have that kind of thing. Or I could easily see a Chewbacca type like shoving a guy into a corner or something. That kind of also fits with the, not that Star Wars is slapstick, but it is very, even when it's not animated, it still feels very animated, right? It's very CGI, very colorful, very bombastic, over the top. And so I just feel like that kind of system makes a lot of sense. And it's just super fun, like on a strategic level. Just like that's, Into Breach is based off that too. A lot about movement and predictive movements and things like that. So yeah, I really hope this game is in some way similar to Midnight Suns, but even if it's not, I think that it's a cool idea. There's Into the Breach, Midnight Suns, as I mentioned, like those two games also have like small roster. You have 3 people on your team. It's small, intimate. Whereas there's other games like Fire Emblem or Advance Wars where it's like you have a roster of like 10 to 15 or even more characters like on the map at a given time. I think it would also work well for Star Wars to have like a small roster, like 3 to 4 people on your team at a given time, really working off each other. Because I feel like that's often what is happening in those movies is you have like 2 or 3 characters kind of working together, that sort of stuff. And it would be fun to have like one Jedi mixed with like the Han Solo type, mixed with maybe like a robot of some kind. I think you could come up with some fun weird wacky combos there. So yeah, I guess the reality is I just want more Midnight Suns, and I'm not going to get that because that game didn't sell well, and so I'm hoping this game becomes very similar to that. I hope it takes a lot of those lessons.
It's like what we say with Smash, like we want another Smash that's not Smash, something a little bit different, but something that's like equally as fun. I was gonna say though, when you say small roster, what are you picturing? What would be your total roster size, you think, number wise estimation?
I guess I meant more like like on a given map, how many characters you have in play. Because I guess Midnight Suns, by the time you had all the DLC in there, what did it get up to? 15, 14, something like that?
No, okay, that's what I want to know. Just because when you're talking about, I was going to say, I thought if you meant the roster, because then I thought, if you have a small roster, you're going to have to pick an era. And I feel like to get the most money, you probably want to have at least prequel characters, sequel characters, and original, right? Like
I guess how do you do that and tell a compelling story? I almost like, I don't care so much. Like, I'd rather just have like, give me the iconic characters, give me a fun thing. But I feel like you make a good point. They probably would pick an era and then like make it character accurate to that time.
I'm with you. Like, I don't know how you do it story wise, because even in Night Suns, right? There is like, actually, I think we both told we really like the story of God, what was our character's name? What was the
Hunter?
Hunter, yeah. Like we really like the character Hunter and the story and everything that happened. So, and that was not something I was expecting. So that is a tough thing of. Do you do not that again? I guarantee you watch the reveal and be almost nothing like Midnight Suns. Like but like in that sense, you do like a different era. It's tough.
Let me throw this at you because this game is kind of being helmed or started with the help of Respawn, who make the Jedi games. Like, do you think they'd go for that arrow and like Cal would be a playable character on the roster? Like, who would he bump around with in terms of like known characters, just in terms of like what would make sense story wise. I guess you get into some pretty gray area there if he's hanging out with Han Solo and stuff, and I don't even know the eras anymore. But
Yeah, I think that's the tough thing is like what approach they take. Because like you could do that, and I guess he could be on the roster, but because in that time you got like a Vader, he's still around, like popping off, and Palpatine and stuff. I don't think you have like you just got a young Luke somewhere. I think Han Solo is just kind of a young, and Boba Fett does appear in the second Jedi Survivor game.
Okay,
you like whatever,
and he could have a perfect moveset for one of those.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. So you could do that. I could also see Cal like, if they go for we're just gonna have a wild, fun adventure with all these characters, he could be like a great DLC character because he has ties to the studio. But like I said, I don't know how you do it, but I would love the approach of somehow just play with them all. I guess you could copy the Lego thing and have like 3-4 missions in this era, 3 in that. So then when you get to the end of the game, that is the fun part where you are playing. It's kind of like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, right? It's not the same, but it's like when you first play the game, the mission you got to play is as the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? But then when you replay the game, you can play as Thanos. You could, you can literally have Thanos fighting Thanos or Magneto fighting Magneto. So maybe that's my prediction. They might go that route, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance route, where maybe it's errors, but it is, you got to play that first, and then you want to get that end game, because then you could literally have a team of Luke, Vader, Mandalorian, and Kylo Ren, like mix up Lego was like that too, right? Where you played with your set of characters and then you unlock them and could go back. Midnight Sun's a little bit different because you didn't necessarily play the stories again, but you would replay the missions. So I just feel like you gotta, if they don't get me wrong, I would actually have mad respect for them if they said we're making a Star Wars game that has like very little to no Star Wars characters, and it's just like using lightsabers, stormtroopers, like the aesthetics. That'd be cool, but I don't think you can do that in this day and age. Like, I think that's almost DOA on arrival. So I think if I'm in the board, I'm thinking, how do we get the most money? You got to have kind of like what Battlefront would do, right? It's like a little bit of everything. But I don't know, they could easily pick an era, because each era has enough. Like, even if you just pick a movie one, if you just did the prequels, you have enough characters there to do, like Grievous, Anakin, Qui-Gon, Palpatine, Yoda, even sequels. You got tons. So it's like, you could just pick one, and if they do, they'll probably pick the Dark Times, and they'll probably pick the classic, 4 to 6, which is fine. If it's a great game, I'll be happy, but it is always, we're always, in that pocket. So
yeah. I mean, I think another thing just kind of crucial to this genre in general is the stakes of the characters, and getting you really invested in them. And there are games that make an exception to that, like Advance Wars. They don't really care. If one was old or dies, you don't care. But in like Fire Emblem, Midnight Suns, all these games, like you really, whether it's they have permadeath or not, or just them getting knocked out, you really care for these people. But I feel like, okay, if part of this is like you have a larger roster, and then you have like Cal on your team, but then you also have like Rebel Soldier 1, Rebel Soldier 2, right? Like, I don't know if people are, even if you give them a name, like, oh, we got Dave, we got Espels, we got Travis over here. Like, maybe you wouldn't have as much buy-in.
But maybe you wouldn't. But maybe at least if you could do something similar, like when you had where were they staying again in Midnight Suns?
The Abbey.
Yeah, the Abbey. Even if it's something
you got to boot this game up again. You're getting a little foggy on the details.
I do. I give me a reason. But that's the thing where it's like, maybe if it is like that, where because that's how Knights of the Republic works, where you meet all these new characters, but you grow to love them. So if it's the same way of like, you start like in Midnight Suns, a book club with, Rebel Soldier #1 named John, and that's how maybe you grow to love them the same way we love Hunter, is do those same scenarios where you're learning stuff, going on missions, and trying to find some sort of, if it is mostly just battles and you don't have those personal interactions, then yeah, just cut corners and go with the characters we know and love. But I would love it if it was like Midnight Suns, where it's like, yeah, you can choose who to have a strong relationship with. You can choose to, be nice to this person, or like we said, go join a book club. Like, you could maybe find a way to make yourself care about those characters, but not all tactics games are about that, right? Sometimes very light on story and just let's get to the fun game, which, could be great too, but I don't know. Very curious.
Yeah, I think maybe my last thought on this is like, that first-person shooter game got canceled, which was kind of announced, I think, in the same breath of wind as this. If they have this obviously coming up here, like they've announced this announcement, they're going to talk about the game. Some like Star Wars Outlaws bombed and didn't do well, but it seems like this game's not canceled, obviously, if they're going to plan to talk about it more. So hopefully,
the one we reviewed?
Yeah, it did. I don't know if it like lost the company money, but at least in terms of what they
Just
wanted
sales
for it, it
wise,
went
okay.
way under. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking like but critically, I think it was liked, right? But obviously, that doesn't matter nowadays for companies. They just
Yeah, I
want
don't know. Maybe like the classic 7.5 for that one.
75. Yeah, that's not bad in the green there. And then
Hmm.
obviously, not like a big deal, but then last week they announced that they're closing down Hunters too, which I didn't even know was out because
Right.
that game had been delayed so many times. I thought it was still cooking and everything, but yeah, no, I
Yeah.
guess you're right. I kind of forgot that Outlaws didn't have the biggest uh, box office success.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, and then I kind of wanted to do just a brief check-in on like
Mm-hmm.
where we're at with Star Wars games, what's currently in development in the oven. I feel like Outlaws announced some DLC stuff like, pre-launch. Obviously, the game didn't sell super well, so I don't think it's going to get like as much DLC as like an Assassin's Creed game would get. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I should check into that because I obviously was a big fan of that game and I would definitely jump in if they had a new planet. If they just had like here's a new quest on this one. I don't
Yeah, it's
think
like
I would,
yeah.
resubscribe to Ubisoft Plus for that. But if they added a new planet or something, I'd definitely jump in there for another 5 or 6 hours, explore some new stuff. So I don't know. I should look into that and see if there's anything else coming out for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we also got Star Wars Eclipse, which it's been a while since we've got an update on this one, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let me just go through all of them, I guess. Then we can kind of talk about which ones are interesting to you. Knights of the Old Republic remake is still.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every once in a while we're getting updates about that. So I think it's still happening. But
Same
these
as
updates aren't always
Eclipse.
good.
Yeah, the Eclipse did say something like I think recently it came out like yeah we're still working on it and stuff. So I think it's or
Yeah.
wait, the Eclipse that's the Quantum Dreams one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the recently was like yeah it's still I don't know what on track means for them, but so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there Amy Hennig's Star Wars game, which
Mm-hmm.
like I guess so. This is the same. I guess I don't know if this would be the same studio that's making the Hydra
I think it
19.
is.
Yeah, I mean she was obviously like the writer,
Yeah.
creative director person, but I don't know if that's the same. I guess it's Skydance New Media as the developer, both of them, but I don't know if it would be the same team or if there's two separate teams. But it
Yeah.
seems, but based on the fact that we haven't even seen a ton of that Marvel game, but we've seen something. Whereas this game we haven't really, the Star Wars one we don't know anything about. I could see this one getting canceled, like just based on where Star Wars is at right now. But also, I feel like this is at the very least, after the Marvel thing, so it's
Absolutely,
probably pretty far away, I guess. Eh?
And they say supposedly that rumor is that Marvel game's out in December. I don't know how much I believe that, but that was that scuttlebutt that happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
I
can't
forgot about
remember.
that.
I don't know if it was someone official saying that or if it was like a higher tier scooper, but I thought something came out that said December was looking like the date for that, which they should start pumping some more stuff out then soon to get that going if
Mhm.
that's true. But yeah, the Henning one, I'm 50-50 on the cancellation because she had lost a Star Wars game already. So it's almost like, man, do you want to do that? Because remember, she was working on that with somebody that was that game that was like, the First Order was there and they had like, there was a little bit of it. It did
Yeah.
get canceled, but then she has her own thing. So it's like, I'm going to take that as the game's happening because I would imagine that it's like, okay, if you want her to do a game, like if you already had a game that she got canceled and that was taken away. Do you really want to go back into business with her if you're not committed to making that game happening? My side, I'm just trying to say that maybe the Marvel game is just the focus right now, and then they're gonna pump that out, get that out there, and then once you get there, all the attention kind of diverts to over there once that's kind of fully going. Because Amy Hennig doesn't strike me as a person from I've never played the Uncharted games, but doesn't strike me as a person that's like wanting to rush a game out there just to hit a deadline.
Mhm.
Obviously, these big companies have them, but this Marvel game's been cooking for a while, and like we just got the full title like this or end of last year. So that game, I'll be excited. Depending, let me hear more. I guess you're right, could get canceled, but I feel confident about that. The Eclipse one, I feel still somewhat confident because I feel like Quantic Dreams usually would have long breaks in between their games, anyways, right? So it's not
Yeah,
like
I think this game's definitely. I don't think there's any trouble for this one.
yeah, they just had that studio had a lot of trouble. Remember a couple of years ago where a lot of people left due to like some
Right.
personal
Right.
issues and a lot of like
So
lawsuits.
who knows?
and
Maybe it's a Wonder
everything.
Woman situation just waiting to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be, but I hope not. I hope it comes out. Then yeah, Kotar. That's like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate them coming out saying we're still making it. Everything's still looking good. And they said, oh, we only want to share something when we have something cool to share. But as I said in the Discord, they've been working on this game for 3 years plus. Obviously, there was a break in between there. 'Cause
It's got
some
passed
stuff
around
happened.
between multiple teams at this point
Yeah.
too. I think so. It's definitely a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess, but that's what I was saying. Of like, it's been 3+ years. Like, you got nothing cool to show at this point, you know. So, that's a game. I didn't do it last year. I put in my Knights of the Republic in the Xbox, the Series X, like whatever I have, the newest one. Like, it works, it can play, but I didn't boot it up. I wanted to. It was like Midnight Suns, or like the goblins tell me, like, oh, you want to play this, but I've told myself no, I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna wait. But the day that remake gets canceled, anything I have in my like to-do list I've given you, that's all going aside. I'm playing Knights of the Republic because I've been dying to replay it, but I'm like, I don't like that new
If the
game
game
might
gets
come out.
canceled, I will do that with you, and we can do a full episode.
Let's do
on it.
retro. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll sign me up for a retro of that'll be our like in memoriam for Knights of the Republic remake. But I guess I'm just trying to be positive on all these, that the fact that they're at least even coming out saying something is a good sign. Where even Wonder Woman, we weren't getting like, don't worry,
Yeah.
like it's still on track. Like at least I'm still saying, hey, this is happening. And I do think Star Wars does know, even though there's apparently some people up top that don't love that era. I think they are, like most companies right now, very obsessed with making a profit and getting some money. And I think they do know that that is I think that will sell, actually. I know that is like an older generation, but I do think KOTOR would actually move units and numbers and have buzz to it,
I think
because
so. It's got the
it's just,
nostalgia.
yeah, it's just like when you look at best Xbox games, like the old, it's like that's always in a top 10, right? And there's just tons of things. And I feel like when that trailer came, it's lots of excitement. So it's one of these things where it's like, you kind of have to hit this one. So I'm excited for them all, and I hope they announce no new ones other than like Jedi Survivor 3 or whatever that is,
Which
they're
that
always
is in development as well.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that yet, but that's
Yeah.
also currently confirmed to be being
Yeah,
worked
and
on.
I trust them. They make great games. They're always like a solid like 8 out of 10 game, which is good.
Yeah,
for me.
are you still after Survivor? Are you at, like, where's the hype level? Are you like day one on this new one? If
Yeah,
it's
I
coming
am.
out?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the story was a bit better this go around. I like Cal more, and they kind of left it on like, oh, you don't really care that much. They kind of teased like Cal struggling not to turn to the dark side, which I think could be a fun story to do that. You can
good.
unlock some new abilities. So no, I think every time, it's not a game that I like go back to unless like, oh, I'm really in a Star Wars mood and I want to be a Jedi. But I think each time they've delivered, and I guess for me too, I had a much more positive experience because remember the first game was really buggy for me, so that took me down a lot of my enjoyment level, where the second one I did not have that. So yeah, no, I think I'm a day one there. I'll finish out that trilogy.
Nice.
I think it's a solid franchise, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. And I think they have said that is the last one too, so I'll see it out, you know.
Has there ever been like a Ultimate Alliance equivalent for Star Wars? Because obviously Lego games have always, like, they're quite similar in structure, but like the tone is a bit different, and there's bonus things on top. But has there ever been just like a straight up, Ultimate Alliance or like the Justice League game, like equivalent for Star Wars? Collecting
think so.
characters, going through these little kind of linear levels, light puzzles on top of it.
No, it's kind of the combo of like any collecting characters have been like, remember that terrible Star Wars 3 fighting game I made us play in the Gauntlet one time, where it's like it's
Oh
a
man, yeah, I do
it's-
remember that. Ever
yeah,
so
it's like
slightly.
a
Yeah.
stage fighter. Yeah, like you unlock characters there, and then there's like linear mission ones, but that's like you're playing Phantom Menace, the movie game, where you're like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon going through. So I don't think they have it. I think
Yeah,
that would
okay.
that'd be tons of fun. Even just give me playing through the movies there. You know, you could do an all original story, but I think that would be such a good time. I would love Marvel
Yeah.
Alliance. Same thing with like DC. Like, why have you not done like a full on new like that Justice League one? We played it. It was what it was. It was fun enough, but like it still definitely was not, didn't capture what even the Marvel games had back then. Like to me, that's like a layup one of, I don't know how it would sell, but I just feel like I would love to see a new DC game doing that. So yeah, Star Wars, yeah. Sign me up, you know.
Yeah, I saw one thing I saw is that, so TT Games, Traveler Tales, who like made all the Lego games over the years. I saw an article that like maybe Lego is considering bringing development in house for more games at this point, and so that would like essentially cut TT out of development of these kinds of things. And I feel like that could maybe open up a realm where like TT Games would go and make other licensed
Oh,
games, but just like
yeah.
without the Lego license. And I wonder if that could be like a resurgence of games like this. But I also don't know, like Ultimate Alliance 3, I think it had a smallish budget, smallish return. Like, it made money, but not like, oh, damn, we got to make 4 right away kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the Lego games, I don't know. I think they kind of vary just because there's so many of them. It's hard to compare like how successful or what. I think a lot of those games have a really low budget too, right? But
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think
I
it's
wonder
still
what the market
hotcakes.
for these kind of more arcadey games would be like.
Yeah, I feel like those Lego games sold hotcakes in like the 360 era because I feel like everyone knew would have
Although
like Star
I
Wars
do think the most
Lego,
recent
and
Star Wars Lego one, like the
it
whole
did do
the
well.
Skywalker Saga, I think
Yeah,
that one did really well.
yeah.
But that makes sense because that's kind of like a culmination of like 20 years, and like it was the first Lego game, right?
I feel like anybody that makes like a Lego top 5 list, they put that game, even though they don't love it the same anymore. It's like just nostalgia. Like that's what everyone
Yeah.
remembers as playing those. Um, yeah, I because TT Games is still with Warner Brothers or with yeah, they're with Warner Brothers, right? They're with Warner
I don't
Brothers
know. They've
Game.
done a lot of IP outside of WB, so I don't know if they're under that
They have. I just thought that
umbrella.
was the whole thing when the layoffs happened. It was like, oh, what's going on TT Games,
Let's
and
see if I
nothing
can
happened
find
there.
out.
But you know what? There's a situation. If they can't do Star Wars, get TT Games on the DC, Alliance game. Like that'd be perfect. Like that you can run that. We're in a world hopefully right now where we're getting a DC universe.
You
that'll
are
be
right that they are
successful.
WB
So see,
under there. Yeah.
if that report's true about Lego going Warren House, and what did they say? They even though hey, we're gonna focus on DC games and we cancel DC game, they say we're focused on Game of Thrones, DC. What was some of the other ones they said? I can't remember. There was like 4 franchises they listed. Like this is all we're doing now from now on. So it's
Oh,
like
Game of Thrones and
yeah,
yes,
it's DC, something else, but like that's where it's like okay, put TT games on the like Alliance, DC Marvel Alliance, the DC Alliance game. Like that would be a perfect fit because they say which one, and like you said, make it for cheaper. Like hopefully,
You know
but
what?
again, maybe that's just different era.
Because on top of that too, like I think James Gunn, I mean, he says a lot of stuff, but he was saying something that like he wants there to be a video game, not necessarily like, oh, you got to play this game to understand like Superman, obviously, but like, having some element of maybe some continuity between characters or even just like really bolstering that side of things. And so I wonder if something like that could make sense. And that's where you can get some freaks like the Creature Commandos in there. And I don't know, just
that's
really blow it out with
perfect,
like, here's the current DC, the people on the slate, like you can play as all these characters in like a fun arcadey game.
yeah. I love that.
High tide raises all boats mentality, perhaps for some DC stuff that could be cool. In terms of Star Wars, is like from those games we just discussed, like, is there something missing for you? Is there something that you're like, man, I wish this genre or like a continuity of this series would just like get announced? Like, you just want something else in the fray, or are you pretty happy with like the current slate of things that are coming?
Well, I feel like you kind of pitched it with the Alliance game, so I'll take that
Yeah,
one
that
out
would be
there
cool,
because
yeah.
that'd be fun. But it's like what with the Amy Hennig one? If let's say all these games come out, right? Let's say it's just
Sure.
5 years from now. Oh, we're happy. So Amy Hennig, you get the story one, so I should be happy there. And the Jedi games kind of do that too. Like it's not the most amazing story, but it still scratches the itch of like you're playing a Jedi and there's a good to great story at times. So you got that. Then Amy Hennig is like the prestige story, right? You're getting that, Uncharted, great character piece, okay. And then if we get a tactics game, that's off. The Quantum Dreams one would be the Choose Your Own Adventure, which I love, and then KOTOR would be that big RPG one. So I'm trying to. As of right now, I don't think so. Other than like for the meme, I would love a redo like Pod Racer, like something like that. Because I think
Racing, yeah.
with an online, so we could have some fun, use it in like the charity stream. But that's like more of one like I don't even know for sure if I would go out there and spend the money. It would have to be really good. But I think because like you got an RPG, you got a tactics, choose your own adventure. No, or like like I said, I think it would be what you pitch Alliance, or even then have TT somehow have them make the next Smash Bros. Game, but with Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
Like, that would be something.
Yeah, we did that
really
episode of like
cool.
Disney making a Disney roster, so
Yeah.
that like included Star Wars, of course. But yeah, even like there is enough juice just in Star Wars alone to give you like a good
Absolutely.
2025 character roster, make a cool platform fighter that could be
Yeah.
really fun.
I guess maybe you could try and have somebody do something. How I feel like they've had a little resurgence, like that Power Rangers game is coming out, and the Turtles, like Shredder's Revenge, like maybe
okay.
something like that. Because I would have, don't get me wrong, I would have.
I would love to see that pixel art style with some Star Wars stuff. That would
Oh
be gorgeous.
yeah, like all the ships and planets. Like there's some good stuff there. I actually wasn't like completely opposed to the first person shooter because there's a game I think it's called Star Wars Dark Shadows that I really liked back in the day. That
I
was
think
a
especially after
first-person
Indiana
shooter.
Jones, like picturing that kind of game
Yeah.
with a Star Wars character, it's like okay, yeah, I could
yeah.
I could see the vision now for what this game could have been.
I could say, and for me, I consider it like a small miss, but I'll speak for the Star Wars franchise, including Taylor and Clay, because there was a game report going out for a while, but then it turned out was fake. I do think they're missing the boat on not having a Mandalorian type of bounty hunter game,
Yeah,
like with the no Jedi, and I guess
absolutely.
that's what Outlaws kind of was, right? Like in a sense, but it's not.
Yeah, I guess it was. I guess
You
it
don't
kind
have
of
the
was.
jetpack, you don't have the cool, like how you don't have a game where it's like you, me, and Taylor are saying, "Oh, this is what my Mandalorian looks like. This is what like." How do you
Mm,
not have that where you're different cloak, different armor? Like that's feels like a layup, and to me, it feels like now if you and Kirkland are right, or I can't remember if it's you. Is it you and Kirkland made the? Do you think Mando movie's making 1 billion, or is it you and
me and
Taylor?
Taylor think it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
if you guys are right, then maybe we didn't miss the window. To me, I felt like we kind of missed the window from the show, and if the movie is all right, the hype might be gone. But if that millions of $1 billion, you make a Mandalorian game. Even if Mando's not the main character, he's just someone that I don't know. Pedro gives you some missions or something. I do think a bounty hunter because that's a game I loved. Was that the Star Wars bounty hunter game? Oh man, I played the hell out of the game. Have you ever played that game back in the day?
I have
Or
not.
Django? Oh my goodness, it's a great game. So I do think that's one where for me, I would take those other games that we have rumored right now or in the works over them. But the Mandalorian game, because I just feel like that comes up all the time. And I remember in our Discord when that happened and then it was revealed that was fake, there was just like sadness from everybody. And I just felt like my entire like internet timeline was like, oh, bummer. Like it's just one of those things where it feels like out of everything that they are making, even though I'm very excited for KOTOR and stuff, like how did no one not say like, hey, this was a massive deal on Disney Plus at one time? Like, I'm not saying it can't be the hardest game, but I feel like the blueprint's kind of there. If you just look at like Assassin's Creed or like a smaller version of Red Dead Redemption, like imagine Red Dead when you go there and you find the papers and all the bounties. Like, just do that with Star Wars, you know? Like,
I do feel like Star Wars Outlaws kind of killed that like
it
possibility.
it did though, right? Yeah, because it is similar sort of feels, and I'm with you. I like that game too. I actually want that's on my list to complete this year at some point, hopefully, like in my backlog list because I did enjoy it. But I think maybe that was. I wonder if you take that game and you throw on some Mandalorian armor on that character, what it does, you know? Because I feel like it at least sells a few
True.
more units, whether it's male or female. Because I just think that's what everyone wanted, and Outlaws was kind of like, well, we've made this, and I was like, oh, but like we wanted this type of that game, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the platform fighter one would be like at the top of my bucket.
Oh,
I would love in a perfect world, Star Wars Outlaws 2 gets greenlit, even though like no exec is going to greenlight that at this
yeah.
point, but it does get greenlit and then it sells well so that no one gets laid off. Like I don't that's the thing. Like I want another one to come out, but I also don't want it to just bomb and then like people get fired because, the execs greenlit this game when they shouldn't have kind of thing. But I just want that to come back and then otherwise I think this is like as you mentioned, like a nice pretty well-rounded slate. I guess it's very focused on like the narrative side of things, but I think that's what a lot of people want from this and there's so much ground to play with, like just because of the different eras of Star Wars. So I feel like there's some good variety in the kind of current slate of things. I think we just need one sillier game, whether that is like
I agree.
a pod racing, whether it is like the Ultimate Alliance thing we pitched. Well, I don't know if there's really room to do another Lego game right now, but even if that does happen, just like another silly game, I think needs to get put in the mix there.
The other one I'll shout out, and I am really bad because I haven't played one game that came out in this genre recently, but I know what Taylor really wants and what I do too with my Battlefield, Middle Earth love. Real time strategy with multiple
RTS, yeah.
Yes, that'd be great. That is on my list. It's lower, but I want to get into Dune Spice Wars. I booted up that one time and then was like, oh, you gotta lots to learn in that game, and it's kind of like better if you play through a story or this. I can't remember what it was, but there's literally like a whole section that's like the instruction section. I'm like, okay, I don't got time to do all this. Like, is it worth? Because I can't remember. I thought you guys like liked it, but it wasn't anything. Maybe
Yeah, I can't remember if it was technically in early access when I played it, but
think it was.
or yeah, it was. There's
You and
been a
Kirkland
lot
did a
more.
mini review, I thought.
Yeah, I talked about it on Sidequest, but a
Yeah.
lot more has changed in that game
Okay.
since I've played it, and I haven't gone back to it recently. But I did
Okay.
really enjoy it, and I found it, as far as RTS goes, not too complicated. Now, I was not playing on the highest difficulty or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I found it like actually not too bad once I got in there and messed around for a half an hour. So yeah, I
Okay.
definitely want to revisit that one again as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll plan to revisit that with you at some point because I
Hmm.
that's been one that I really want to because I do like I said love that game back in
I
the
think it's
day.
on Game Pass right now.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
it's
check it
still
out.
it's another goblin always looking at me there. But I'm sticking to my plan. I'm sticking to my list here.
I respect
But
that.
yeah, I'm with Taylor that you got so many factions of characters Star Wars. Like you could even just do a whole Gungans faction, like and have them
Yeah.
throwing those like energy things like that to me. I can't say that's a layup because I don't know how well that would sell in today's day and age as far as like I feel like there's specific games that do that and that's where it is. Like even with Dune Spice Wars, like I don't even know like what the I know it's on Games Pass. I don't know like what is the success level. Like did they
Yeah, I've never
consider
looked into that. I should take a look and
yeah.
see how successful that game actually was.
So I don't know what the way Star Wars is if that would be a success, but I would personally love to scratch that itch. So
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, let's take a minute to scratch that itch, and we'll be right back for the last segment of the show. Okay, we are back. So our last topic for the day is talk a little bit about Nintendo. I don't think I've really talked to you much about the Switch 2 a whole lot, but yeah, it's coming out at some point this year. Probably we're gonna get more information in April. April's gonna be a big month. We're gonna get some Star Wars news. We're gonna get some Switch 2 news.
And there's CinemaCon, which is like they show a bunch of like previews and stuff. So April, it's actually gonna be big. And we got Last of Us back. I didn't even think about that. So jeez, okay.
But yeah, there's a really good article here from Polygon. So I'll link this. Shout outs to, can I find the name of the author of this? Michael McWhirter did the this article.
He's on the run. No one's named McWhirter,
I don't know. He's a journalist with more than 17 years of experience covering video games, technology, movies, TV, and entertainment. So
all right, sure.
Seems legit to me. But anyway, they posted this article the other day, and this is really helpful for me because one of the things that bothers me about Nintendo is that, when we compare it to like Sony, it's like, oh, we know Santa Monica Studio, and they made God of War, and they're making another God of War. We know Guerrilla, and they made Killzone, Horizon, they're making another Horizon thing. And it's easy to see like what the studios are, what they're making. Xbox is the same way. It's like, oh yeah, Playground made Horizon, now they're making Fable, la-di-da, right? But with Nintendo, it's like research and development group 3 made like this game, and like they're really bad with credits. Like I think this was a thing last year when Princess Peach Showtime came out, and like before the game came out, no one knew who was making that game because Nintendo just doesn't. I feel like they don't want people to know that their games are made by people. They just want them to seem like these weird mystical things that just come out of nowhere.
They just want you to think of Nintendo, not
yeah,
people.
exactly. Yeah. They don't want you to get into the weeds on it. But then also, I was thinking about that idea of like why is Nintendo so weird about their credits and not hyping up the people who make these games. And they do interviews sometimes and stuff, but they're a very guarded company. But then it's funny when they have like their Nintendo indie directs that they do. Those are very people focused. It's like two people on a couch and they're like, this is our passion project that we've been working on for 5 years and we're so excited to show it off. And like that's very developer focused. So I don't know where the line is between Nintendo doesn't want to highlight the people who make their first party games, but then like for the indies, they, go all out and really make them feel loved and all that. So anyway, just kind of a random side tangent, but all that to say that this is a nice article because it breaks it down by like, here's this Nintendo group or studio that's internal within Nintendo. Here's the things they made previously, and here's what they could be making for like the Switch 2 launch lineup sort of stuff. So just like a nice way to collate that. But I don't know, I guess just on that tangent, like, do you have any other thoughts like why Nintendo does, like why they do this, why they're so weird about like the developers of the studios and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's tough because like they do have these people on the directs or all the showings and whatnot, but I wonder if they know honestly that's just for us geeks. Like maybe some kids are, but I mean like the mainstream people, like our friends, they're not tuning into the direct to see, like what the news. They expect us to tell them what that news is. So it's almost like they know the hardcore people are watching this, so you can see like, oh, these are the people that do work on these games. These are the people behind it, the people you care. But overall to the public, I think because I feel like there was a time before like we knew Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars and Kevin Feige and Marvel. Like Disney was like that. Disney was just like, you thought of the castle. And that's all you did, right? You thought the blue castle,
right,
or you thought of the light bouncing on the Pixar logo, right? But now it's like, we know who runs this, or we know like, all these people really shitty Pixar employees. So I feel like Nintendo's still trying to keep that idea of like, you still like the magic of being in love with the red background and the white letters. You just want to think of, or Mario, right? You don't want to put like a face to all those people. I think as gaming fans and journalists care about that stuff. And I'm not saying people don't care about that. Like if I were to introduce somebody, my dad, like, oh, this is the guy that created Mario, I'd be like, oh, this is awesome. He would like brush him off. But I feel like they're not actively seeking that stuff, right? It's just
Hmm.
stuff for them to consume. So I think they just like the idea of being a broader uh brand, even though it is weird of like crediting people. It's like at that point, same thing. Like most people are gonna skip the credits and not care, but I think it's
Yeah.
just like an image thing that they want to appear kind of magical, kind of Wizard of Oz ish at times, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's really not a big deal at all. Like it's really just for people like us who care about these things and want to really
mm,
know like okay, yeah, this team made Odyssey, so like what is that team doing? And we have to say it in really weird ways just cuz like the names are confusing and not memorable. So that's just a weird Nintendo quirk, but they have a lot of those. So yeah, we're just gonna go through this list real quick and not read every word of this article. You can go read it, of course, on your own, but just kind of go through the broad strokes of here's the studios, here's what they most recently made, and will they have anything ready to go for the Switch 2 launch lineup or even launch year, that kind of stuff. So first one here, Nintendo EPD Co-Production Group. Once again, these names not very good. It's literally group 3, 4, 5 goes up from there. So hard to remember the names of all this. But this seems to be like more of a support studio. So they've worked with other studios like HAL Laboratory, Intelligent Systems, Monolith Soft. So they work on things like Kirby, Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, but never really as the lead developer. I don't know if maybe they do more like online relative things or other support studio stuff. Seems like maybe they're the sole developer on Kirby's Dream Buffet, which is like a little eShop download thing, or maybe it was like $10 or $20 or some small little thing like that. So I don't know if there's much to glean from this because they're more of a support studio in that way. Also, this list is not, it doesn't include everything, right? Because like Intelligent Systems, I forget if that's first party. That's like the Fire Emblem team, and like I don't know if that's like not on this list. And like who's the Next Level Games who make like Mario Strikers and stuff, like they're not on this list, even though they did
yeah,
get acquired and are a first party thing. So I think this is more just like the people at the Nintendo HQ in Japan, like these are the different teams and how they get broken out.
Which I know that's a sideline conversation, but what do you think that team is working on? Because I feel like we at Geekverse have like a love for that team because we love Strikers. We loved, me and Taylor, big Luigi Mansion fans. I think we all like Luigi Mansion. Do you think it is just like another mansion they're working on? Because obviously they put out that 2 refurbished, which I haven't bought yet. But do you think
Yeah.
it's that, or do you think it? Like, I doubt it's something new. I would love it to be like another Strikers to see what they're cooking, but I doubt it's that too. So I think it has to be Mansion 4.
Yeah. I think you unplugged your mic, by the way. You want to
Oh,
plug your other one in real
I
quick.
did. Sorry, I apologize to everybody. My There we
It
go.
sounded fine, but just a little underwater there for a second.
Yeah.
No, I think they're probably just working on Mansion. I think they're doing Mansion 4. That game sold 3 to be specific, sold really, really well, and it's for something like a remake. I don't know how well that one sold, but it wasn't like it wasn't like the KOTOR remake or what we assume that to be, right? It was a little bit simpler on the I don't know, the release and development of it in terms of the quality. So I think it probably had a pretty small budget, all things considered. So I think they're working on Mansion 4. Will it be ready for launch? I don't know.
no, I don't think so. Yeah,
Strikers was 2023, was it, or is it even older than that at that point? Because that would be their
I feel
most
like
recent release.
22. Let's see, Strikers Switch. Let's see, that was 2022 June. So there
Oh
you
my
go.
god! So
So
we're almost 3 years away from that release. That's insane. But
yeah, and then I was gonna say with Mansion, with the remake, when you said it didn't even, like, who knows how it sold. Thing is, like, probably it's like cheap to, like, not lots of
yeah, and I don't
manpower
even
there,
know. Did
right?
did Next Level
So
Games even make that, or I don't even know.
I didn't
if
think
they
they did. I thought we talked about that was the situation that they couldn't. They not couldn't, but they weren't really behind it. But it didn't really matter because of the remake.
Yeah, let me see. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I thought that's what we talked about. But even then, again, that must, even if it sold whatever it sold, I feel like that's probably just all profit because like they just it was just a port over pretty much, right? It wasn't anything big change.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was developed by Tantalus Media, who I've never heard of in my life. But yeah, so it
Tantalus
wasn't even
Media.
it wasn't even
What a name.
wasn't even Next Level Games that was working on that one. So I'm seems like maybe they've been just cooking on Luigi's Mansion 4,
Yeah.
possibly. I don't know. I
exciting.
don't know what else they would do, but I think that does make sense. I think that does make sense as like the next game for them to make if it is going to be a sequel.
Don't get me wrong. So like I guess I did love aspects of Mansion 3, but you can go back to the review me and Taylor did years ago where me and him were like a little let down because it just feel like it didn't it didn't feel like a step up from Luigi's Mansion 1. I do
Yeah.
get that, okay, do Luigi's Mansion 4, the sales are there. But if they weren't doing that, or at least after this game, I would like them to do something different. The same way when Luigi's Mansion came out, that's what was so exciting, is that it felt so different. You're taking
Yeah,
not
true.
Mario, you're making a Luigi standalone game, and it's in a haunted mansion using some things like the booze and other stuff, but something completely different. That's what I'd love them to do. Again, it's probably sales based, but I'd love them to do that with Wario or Waluigi or somebody, or Yoshi, somewhere. It's like, let's take one of these big characters and do something completely new with it. So I hope after 4 cranks it, that's what I'd like to see, is some revolution again with something, a breath of fresh air,
I love that. Wario's the one that stuck out to me there, because obviously we've had just a barrage of WarioWare games. Like, those are coming out left, right, and center. But back in the day, we got a lot of the Wario platformers, the Wario Land games, and then we also had the one on the GameCube that Taylor whipped out that one stream, Wario's Goal. What the hell is that game called?
You're on the right. Yeah.
It's a 3D platformer anyway, which when I played it was like, okay, this game is totally fine, but not that interesting. But I think to take what you're saying there of like, take a character like that and give him a new dynamic. It's been a while since he's had like a fresh new experience. Obviously had new games, but I think like a new subgenre or something like that, like a new mini series for the character could be a good time for that, even if it's just a platformer type thing with a couple twists on it. I think it's been a long time since we've had that, and he's not usually a character who's playable in like a random Mario game, right? So I think that could be I think that would be a cool one, or take a more obscure character, I guess. But Wario, he's got some power to him. He's got some name to him.
Yeah, or put at least if they make that game, make sure Waluigi's in there. He's his brother. Get some respect to him. But
yeah, I don't think we'll ever get the Waluigi game, but I think maybe through Wario game he could have a bigger role. Wario. What if they just called it Wario and Waluigi? I think that could be cool. That could be cool.
That'd be tons of fun. Yeah.
Little Deadpool Wolverine equivalent.
Exactly. And you got to make some gimmick like Luigi's Mansion. Not sure it'd be, but figure it out,
Something weird and different.
Yeah.
Moving on to group 3 there. Yes, this is the Zelda people. So obviously Tears of the Kingdom 2023 is when that came out. And then it says here they worked on Echoes of Wisdom to some extent, but it was mostly Grezzo who was the developer of that. So 2023 was their last game. I don't think we're getting a Zelda launch. I think, I do think we're going to get like a Zelda, probably the Wind Waker HD thing that has been talked about for years. Like I know that already happened, but like get that released on the Switch too, because that was released on the Wii U, right? But get it finally on the Switch, and probably Switch 2 at the same time, I guess. I don't think they would have any reason not to put that on the original Switch as well. But I think that's what they'll do to hold over the Zelda fans until you get that next big game. Because I think that's probably going to be, I don't know, probably still another 2 or 3 years away if we're being generous.
Yeah, I agree with you on the generous side. It felt like there was a big break for getting Breath of the Wild, even, right? That's the first one. Yeah, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It felt like that took them.
It was 2017 to 2023. Yeah, so that was pretty far.
Yeah,
away.
That's what I feel like for me. It's we're waiting a bit. I think they've kind of earned it. They kind of, like, Breath of the Wild was a huge success for them. Tears of the Kingdom was just like continue off that. Like they had like a banner, like. You could, obviously not for myself, but like many people can argue that as peak Zelda, right? So it's like it's kind of like Smash Ultimate, like we talk about. It's like you're kind of earned time to sit and take as long as you want, and it's kind of, I feel like, makes the absence make the heart grows fonder. And those games could just be brought over to Switch 2 at some point too, right? Just to like get some sales. Oh, here's a bundle edition, whatever they want to do. They could throw a Switch 2 version of those games on there easy. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a bit before we hear from Zelda. So hopefully get a movie. That's what I'm hoping.
Oh right,
here.
yeah, I guess that's cooking. Live action.
There's two.
Movie.
Remember, that's the weird thing. There's supposobly an animated and a live action one.
Oh, I forgot about the animated one. Okay.
I don't think we're getting both of them. I think one will survive, but still, that could be another idea too. Is not that they would make it like a tie-in game, but just like the idea of, let's say 2028 is like a year of Zelda, so.
Yeah. Moving on to Group 4. This is a freak show of a studio that has made Nintendo Labo, Ring Fit Adventure, Game Builder Garage. Most recently, they did the Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, which I think was that one that came out last year. And then they were also, I guess, the developer of Alarma, which is funny, like the hardware, like the alarm clock thing that Nintendo released last year. So obviously this team kind of goes beyond just software and also makes some hardware along with their stuff as well.
Taylor's favorite team. I can't wait
Yeah.
for Labo Switch,
And, shouts to once again Michael McWhirter here, the writer of this article. I think a good mention here is, one of the rumors or things we kind of got showed off a little bit in that trailer for the Switch 2 is like the Switch 2 might have some mouse functionality to it. And so if there is something weird like that as like a gimmick, something kind of new and different, this seems like the prime studio to take that and do something with it. But also, I guess just a general question for you, like how long do you think it would be after the Switch 2's launch that we get the first weird like gimmick controller-y thing, like the Nintendo Labo Ring Fit Adventure equivalent?
Within
like
the
when do we
year.
get within
So
1 year, you think we'll get something?
Let's say this comes out August 2025. With it being by August 2026, you'll have something coming up. It might be the tail end.
Okay.
Maybe I could be wrong. It might be the announcement of something. But I feel like those things, like the amiibo, that felt not that was a gimmick, but that felt like that came pretty quick. Like I feel like anytime their gimmick things are happening, like even Labo, like I don't know if it was in the first year, but I feel like we definitely knew about it within the first year. So
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll-
Labo even around in Wii U era? Maybe I don't even know.
I don't know.
Could've
I don't
been.
think so. I think it was too
Okay.
short a window there. But
Okay.
they'll definitely have their weird thing out in the public there.
Yeah. I think we'll see something at the very least, like something to do with the mouse control functionality. I guess. Well, whoever the team that makes 1-2 Switch, maybe they're the ones who would make the more controller-y based game as the kind of tech demo sort of thing.
Yeah.
Group 5. So this is the team that kind of makes Splatoon and Animal Crossing in recent times. Splatoon. I'm trying to think when that freaking most recent game came out. I guess it was 2022, and then we had Animal Crossing come out in 2020, of course. And my thing with Animal Crossing was, wow, I think for how well this game, it blew up. Obviously, circumstances led to that.
Yeah.
Around the world, it blew up. They did like one major DLC and then a couple like update drops, and then of course it's like a seasonal game, so there's like random things that rotate and whatnot. But I feel like, wow, they kind of ditched that game way quicker than they should have based on how well it sold. But obviously part of that is because it's the same team that makes Splatoon. They had to go on and make Splatoon. But I also wonder if part of that is just Nintendo really planning years ahead and knowing when the Switch 2 is going to come out, and after kind of seeing that immediate success, like maybe it's a good idea to immediately take Animal Crossing, take whatever those DLC future plan ideas were, and throw them right back in the oven and get it ready for a new title. Because I think this would be an amazing idea to have a new Animal Crossing as a launch title or a launch year game for the Switch 2. So I think that would be really smart if that's what they were planning for, and I think there's a decent chance we get something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Where I don't think even them knew how big that was gonna be. Even we
showed that it was a console seller too, which is
Yes.
what you want for a new console.
Which I don't think any of us were talking about that. I know I certainly when the Animal Crossing, okay, cool, they got another edition coming out. But like you said, I think the circumstances, but now the circumstance, to me, it doesn't feel like how we talk about Hogwarts Legacy, where it's like, oh, that feels like that could be a one-off, right? Put out a sequel, maybe it doesn't do those same numbers. Animal Crossing, I think, is now, okay, that was like a brand establisher. So I agree with you that they were probably smart to maybe pull back, be like, okay, let's just really beef up number 2 and make that or not number 2, but the next installment, and like make it a even bigger deal when that comes out. So I agree. Yeah, not year 1, but I could see year 2 or maybe even early year 3 of like a spring. Maybe years 2 is used to like promote it, get it out there, talk about it. But yeah, I think they definitely want to not fast track that in a bad way, but in a way where it's still curated to be playing well, does the things well, but also sell very well. So,
I mean, if they can somehow line up new 3D Mario, the new Mario Kart, and Animal Crossing in the first year, Switch 2 is going to explode.
Yeah.
I mean, it already was probably,
Yeah.
but like on top, like that trio would be absolutely insane, even if that's like the first 2 years to get that stuff out. And then, by the time those are out, maybe year 3 is when the new Zelda hits too. Like, man, that's gonna that in theory, the Switch 2 should be even bigger than the Switch 1, which would be crazy if that happens. So we'll have to remain to be seen there. Group 6 is another support studio, so we can kind of skip past them. Group 7 is another. This is a weird one here. So they are a team responsible for the 2D Metroid games and the Rhythm Heaven series. They most recently made Emio the Smiling Man, the Famicom Detective Club thing, which I've actually heard good things about from my friends over there at the Switch Heads podcast. Patrick in particular is a big fan of that game. Yeah, I don't know. So they worked on 2D Metroid. So I don't know if they did Dread though. That would be the thing. And I feel like probably another. I think Dread was pretty successful. I think it was the best selling either the best-selling 2D Metroid game or the best-selling Metroid game just in general, which, a lot of Switch games are the best-selling game in the given series just because how big that console is. But I would feel like with Metroid Prime 4 being on the horizon, I would think that like the fast tracking another 2D game would be a little bit further down the line. I don't think that was this thing. I think it was maybe Retro Studios that did that, if I'm remembering correctly. But I don't know. This one's probably a tricky one in terms to. I think whatever they release next is something that will probably be like a new IP, like a weird smaller new IP, would be my guess.
Okay, so you mean new IP in totally, or just like a new IP tackling a new, like, yeah, they tackled Metroid last time.
Maybe
Maybe
new IP or a spin-off is the way I'll put it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. It seems like they kind of versatile, go to different places, so they're hard to predict. But maybe another Smiling Man game.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Number 8, this is the 3D Mario team. So obviously Odyssey 2017 there, which was a launch title, launch window. I always forget, but yeah, whatever it was, somewhere in that pocket. And then of course they did the re-release of the 3D Mario or Mario 3D World with the Bowser's Fury edition on there. But that was just a smallish expansion on top of a game that was already made, so probably not a huge development time there. I think this is probably as close to as likely as Mario Kart in terms of being a launch, like first 6 months kind of game. I think we're getting that next 3D Mario game. I would love if it was actually a 3D Donkey Kong game and we finally got that, 64 follow-up. But I think the safer thing to do would be just Odyssey 2. And yeah, I think that's very, very likely to be a launch window game.
Give me that 64. Just bring it over to
64 2?
Donkey
642?
Yeah. But no, I agree. I could see it being Mario Kart being the first game and then the Mario 3D game being the last game of the year. That's like of the year, not the calendar year, but of the year where, let's say, same thing, Switch comes out in, let's say, August, start there, then end the year, you're getting Mario. So it's like the first year you have this good run, and it's been a minute. All these consoles usually have, if it's not this, it's like the 3D platformer, and we just recently got that not too long ago with whatever the hell that game was that I really enjoyed with the family. What was the last one they did? Wonder, right? That's the last
Wonder,
one. So
yeah.
It's not that. If Wonder hadn't come out, then I thought, okay, that probably would have been this. But no, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, and excited to see what they're cooking up. And I will have to catch up and actually play Odyssey. So that is going to be on the docket maybe sooner if that is confirmed, which it will be. So
yeah, I guess for myself, I kind of hope that it's actually not Odyssey 2 and is instead like a new. They had Sunshine, they had Odyssey Galaxy. I want something new and fresh. Mostly just I don't really want the hat mechanics again. I did not really like Odyssey that much, and I just didn't really like throwing Cappy around and the movement involved with that character, or with that, I guess, item as like the new addition for the game. So I kind of hope we get something new and fresh. I don't know how likely that is though. Like I feel like Odyssey 2 seems like a safe, easy bet.
it could be, but if you look at like the history, Galaxy was the only one that got a sequel, right? Like they're always going new style, new place. Like what?
I guess so.
64,
Yeah.
Sunshine,
3D World.
and then 3D World, and Galaxy, and then you got Odyssey. So like, I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance you could get something, because I think the only reason is just because I felt like if we were to get Odyssey 2, it was going to be a lot faster. Like even hearing rumors about it, right? So I'm going to say it's a 50-50 that it's Odyssey 2 or if it's something new. So.
Yeah. Next up is number 9. This is the team responsible for Mario Kart and ARMS. I don't think we're getting another ARMS anytime soon. I think the last ARMS content was when they added Min Min into Smash. I think that was like the best we're gonna get.
They're lucky they got in there. I'm just gonna say it, you know.
Pretty lucky. But I mean, also, ARMS came out. It was the launch title game, so 2017. Min Min was one of the last characters added to Smash. That must have been in 2022 when she was added. So it's like they, for some reason, wanted to put Min Min in there, and maybe that was Sakurai. Like, I have a fun moveset idea, and they're just like, yeah, go ahead, Sakurai, we'll let you do your thing. But oftentimes these characters are added as like promo things for games, like for Nintendo's. They try to throw in their new hot new characters and whatnot. So interesting choice, but I don't know if that's super indicative that we're going to get a arms and legs coming out next time.
Yeah, if ARMS wasn't Nintendo, they wouldn't have been in there. So
yeah, that is true.
There's no
I'll
way.
agree with that. But anyway, the more important part here is they make Mario Kart. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, of course, and then Tour. And yeah, that's the only game that we have seen so far running on the Switch 2 is whatever this next Mario Kart thing is. Mario Kart 9, maybe it has a fun name to it. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think considering that we've seen it running on the console, safe to say this is either a launch title or a launch window game, and that's a great call. That's going to sell really
Yes.
well. It's going to sell consoles. People are
Taylor
going to
can
love
finally
it.
buy that number 9. He waited for so long, and then you get that.
He'll
but
only
yeah,
have to spend $600 now to get the Switch
Yeah.
plus the game.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm gonna be. I don't think I'm gonna be getting Switch day 2. But whenever I do get Switch, the day 1 game definitely be Mario Kart because I think the kids are gonna be old enough now that they can start to play and enjoy that.
I forget, do you
So,
have Deluxe on your Switch?
No, I don't. I had the Wii U one, so I didn't feel
right,
the need
yeah.
to
Fair
buy
enough.
that again. So yeah, I was happy with it. And like I said, for the past few years, it wasn't in a place where I thought the kids were old enough. Where by the time this comes, I'm like, okay, I think they're going to be the right age to start dropping in some cards. So yeah, no, I'm excited to see what they do. It's kind of like Smash, where that's a well-oiled machine. Comes out, there's always great stuff, great maps, classic stuff. Like it's like just a money printing machine, and they're still good games, right? It's not like oh man, they're just cashing on nothing. They're very fun. So
Yeah. And number 10 is the next one up here, and this is the team responsible for the 2D Mario games, as well as the Pikmin series, as well as the Mario Maker series. So this is like reading this is a fun thing for me because like I never realized that the people that make Pikmin are the same people that made Wonder. I just would
Yeah.
never know that because the studios don't have names, and I'm not reading the credits and memorizing all these names and all that. But that's like a fun fact for me, and that's like. Obviously Mario Maker, Mario Wonder, similar scope there. But like, I don't know. Let's say we're getting a sequel to one of those 3 series. What do you think is the most likely for the first one to come out for the Switch 2?
So Pikmin, Maker, and Wonder, correct? Those
Yeah.
are the 3.
Yeah, so I
would
guess just like another 2D Mario. It doesn't have to be a Wonder 2, but just
yeah.
following that
I would
lineage.
say I'd probably say Pikmin. What was the last Pikmin game?
2023, so not too long ago.
Oh.
But it was a long, long time between that one and the previous one. I
Yeah.
think once again, I think that's the best-selling Pikmin game. But once again, Switch effect on that for sure.
Yeah, I don't even remember that game coming out, so it's probably not.
Kirkland played it. He liked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna plead. I guess so. If it's a sequel, then I feel like it'd have to be Wonder. I would say if you were to ask me not that, I'd say it'd be something like Mario Maker, but something new. I don't think they're gonna do another Mario Maker, and I would have picked
Okay.
Pikmin, but I completely got Men in Black like neuralized and forgot that game came out nor existed. And I think with Wonder, if you have Mario Kart and a 3D Mario game, you don't need to be. That doesn't need to be the focus right now. Is to get another Mario
Yeah.
type of game like that out. Like wait some time. So yeah, I would say something new that's gimmicky. But if I had to
Okay.
go a sequel, then I guess I would say Wonder. I guess of those because the Pikmin I
Yeah.
think they wait a little longer, and I just don't know if Mario Maker is going to happen. I think it's a great game. I just don't know. Unless they kind of want that, unless they feel like they want every Nintendo from now on to have like one Mario Maker, but I think that does have a niche audience still,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think like none of these series really need a sequel at the moment. Like I don't know, maybe they do want a Mario Maker on like every console, but like I remember I think it was maybe 2 years. I'm trying to remember like when they did something where they took the servers offline. Maybe I'm thinking of like 3DS stuff. I can't remember, but anyway, they did. It's maybe not as irrelevant as it once was, and I don't know how the second one did in comparison to the first one, but that does kind of feel like maybe it's a series they just want to have one on every console going forward. But I do think that this seems like a good pocket of time where this team could do something new, whether that is genuinely like a new IP or if it's just reviving an old series or just something fresh. Because I don't know if they've made every single 2D Mario game and every single Pikmin game, or if they just kind of picked up those series. But maybe they could be the ones that revive another thing, like an F-Zero or a Star Fox, something in that kind of pocket. But yeah, I think that would be cool. But I think maybe if I had to make a prediction, I'd maybe just say Super Mario Maker 3. Or maybe that's the one where they blow it out a bit more. Maybe it's Mario Maker plus Donkey Kong Maker, and there's like big new features, more of a crossover thing. You need plays Kirby in there, which I know the Mario Maker like through Amiibo you could get other characters in there, but actually adding like mechanics from some of these other games instead of just like a skin like they had previously.
Yeah.
Could be a cool thing. So we will see what happens there. And then we have the Smart Device Production Group. So these make mobile games such as Fire Emblem Heroes, Mario Kart Tour, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. So I don't think these are really relevant ones for like Switch 2 because they'll
Yeah.
probably just continue to make
Do the thing.
yeah, just make their continue to make their phone game stuff or do ports and stuff like that. So yeah, and then there's kind of a quick mention here, I guess, of a bunch of other studios. One Up Studio is also responsible for 3D Mario. Got Monolith, who does the Xenoblade games. We've talked about Next Level already. Nintendo Cube, I guess, is the one that makes Mario Party, which is a fun name. Nintendo Cube, I like that.
Have they worked on anything other than Mario Party?
I'm not sure. This article, Michael dropped the ball here. Only wrote one quick thing in the parentheses, so I'm not sure what else they work on.
That could
at
be
the
it,
moment.
though. That could be because they really don't do much else, right? So
Mhm.
I bet they're working on another Mario Party. I'll say.
Yeah. And then Retro, who's on Metroid right now. And then, there's other stuff like, of course, like Pokemon is kind of separate as well, even though it's somewhat connected. And then there's, ones like Grezzo, like HAL Laboratory, I guess, is maybe not a first. I always forget if they're a first party Nintendo game or if they just work in conjunction. And then, like, there's weird things too, like Sakurai, who like makes Nintendo, is like technically not a Nintendo employee. He's just always been a contractor who like technically through his own studio is just like, which I think is just him and his wife. They like, branch out and like make the game, but like they're not technically, like Smash is not technically like a first party Nintendo thing in that way. It's kind of, well, it is, but in a weird roundabout way. But anyway, there of course is a bunch of other things. But any other thoughts on this after going through this list, or I don't know, any other things we didn't mention?
No, I think like you covered everything. The list covered everything. Like I said, the only one I really want out of all this, which we don't know, we just have like a hopefully there's something Donkey Kong related, but there's nothing, feet to the fire that's gonna for sure happen, because it feels like the games that we've talked about that are, or the whatever studios, developers, teams here that we've talked about that would be in year 1 and year 2 sound like those are, we know their paths, right? Like the Mario Karts, the 3D Mario, something with Animal Crossing. I don't think there's like Luigi, even in year 3, like a Luigi's Mansion 4. I don't think there's any of them that we've talked like, oh, that could be something different. But so I'm excited to see. I don't know what game's gonna make me have to do the purchase yet. I don't know, because I can't even remember what got Marvel.
Do you think Prime
Alliance.
4 could do that for you?
Maybe.
If it's like 90 Metacritic and love,
Yeah.
I'm telling you it's good. Like if it's just an amazing game.
I think there's some time with that. I think what I really need to do is buy like the remaster, whatever, the GameCube one, and get back in that mindset. And because I remember loving it, but I feel like it's a lot of nostalgia because I've not touched a Metroid game in a few years. So I think what I need to do is test my real love for Metroid and go from there. So I think for me, unless there's some oddball like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Luigi's Mansion 4 are always the thing. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it is something just easy as Mario Kart because I got the kids now, but I still don't think it's a day one for me because I don't think there's much like all. It's kind of like what I was talking about with the GM mode or the features for next year for wrestling that could be approved. When all the features this year I feel like have been very primarily bigger screen, like all about the handheld version.
Yeah,
I've used that handheld version maybe less than double digits. It's a docked console for me, so that's why so far the improvements are nothing that I'd be like I need that. Same thing with Metroid though. Have we even talked about, I feel like we've talked about that could still be on Switch 1, right? So it's like if that's still on Switch 1,
I think that will be a cross-platform thing.
Yeah.
But my theory when I talked about this with I think Taylor is that if the Switch 2 part of it is in fact that mouse functionality thing, and that's a first-person shooter, maybe there's something with the Switch 2 where it has an exclusive mode where you can like control it like a first-person shooter or something like that. So maybe there's like a selling point or differentiation, but I think it will be the Breath of the Wild of the cross-gen game for sure.
Okay. And that's why unless that selling feature is something very Travis coded, then I might just be like same way. I'm one of the
I don't think you're buying it so you could have like a Joy-Con as a mouse. Like I don't think that's a selling point for you who hates motion controls on the Wii.
I think I've got memed on this many times in my podcast about I was a Wii U Breath of the Wild buyer. That was me because I didn't need to buy the Switch. It was right there, so same thing. So might be a minute, but I'm excited to see how it does, and excited to see. I think it's gonna sell very well, but I'm wondering, just like we went through that history of the Wii and then to the Wii U, like is there a little slump? I don't think so. I think Nintendo's way more put together now and more business oriented than they have been before.
Different people helming the ship at this point. So,
you never know with people. Things are expensive, right? That's the same point where maybe a lot of people go, I can't, because you got to remember, people like myself, if they have families, it's not just the console. It is, you're buying all new controllers again, this and that. So it's like, if all my Joy-Cons are working and everything, and there's no games that like me and the kids have to get, it's like, we can still keep playing our thing. Like, Joy-Cons aren't cheap. Like, those are expensive little things out there. It's not like, oh, you know, here's a $20. Like, they're like $50, $70 sometimes for us. So it's just like, that's what
it's two controllers for the price of one, so they can charge a shit ton for them.
Yeah. So that's the only hole I'd say. But the gamers, they'll be there. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is a fun breakdown. Of course, it's not a comprehensive list of all this stuff because there's, I don't know what team makes 1-2 switch and 3-4 switch, but I'm sure that there's going to be a new one to show how the new controller works. So there's, a lot of other things as well, but just, looking at those internal developers, always a good thing to do. And maybe I need a spreadsheet to help me just keep track of, group number 7 is the one who made Pikmin 4, like all this kind of stuff. Yeah. I already forget, even though we just went through that in terms of the actual numbers. Because
if they had names, it would help, but
names would be great, but we don't have that. But thank you, Travis, for joining me. This was a really fun episode here. Next week, I guess, this week rather, is the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. So me and Taylor will be playing some of that, and next week we'll be talking about that on next week's episode. So if you're also playing that, let us know your thoughts, or if you have any questions about it, send it our way. Leave a review, throw a thumbs up on there, throw a subscribe. Why not? Hit up the Patreon, see what's going on. But thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.